So, welcome back to Deconstructing DJG. I am DJG and I am here with Crystal, and we have a big update. As many of you know, a lot has been happening in the last week or so with Dave and Bethany since they were on the Paul and Morgan 24 Hours with series episode. I don't even know what to call it. It's right. It's only the second episode that they've done, so we'll see how well Paul and Morgan stick with it. But Dave is Dave is not a Christian at this point, and I'm pretty sure that's not a spoiler for anyone. But we are going to go through and watch the Dave and Bethany very real, very raw. I hate how many times the word raw has been used in Fundy Snark in the last couple of weeks, but in this case, I really do think it makes sense.
I feel like in this video, we're able to see more of who they really are and how they interact with each other, which is, I'm excited. This is a real treat of a video in the Fundy world.
Exactly.
It's fun to watch.
I mean, I had always kind of hoped that there would be some sort of Fundy Snark to Deconstruction crossover, but I did not expect it to be Dave and Bethany. Not at all.
These are the least likely, you would think. Like, absolutely no way. But the signs were there. Even, as we talked about in the last video, there were some big signs that he was saying, like, this is how I feel. And so many of us who have been through deconstruction are going, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Like, he seems like a lot like myself at the beginning of this journey. But for people who haven't deconstructed, it probably didn't look that different.
Exactly. It wasn't nearly as obvious for them. And I think that is really shown in how Funny Snark Uncensored on Reddit has responded in the last couple of days. For the first 24 hours, there were so many posts and thousands of comments about how, Dave duped Bethany, and how dare we say anything nice about Dave and Bethany because they've said some really heinous stuff about LGBT people and whatnot. And there was just no grace whatsoever. There was this, well, if you're going to deconstruct, you need to immediately recant every single conservative, non-progressive, non-inclusive thing that you have ever said in your entire life. And that's just not how it works.
That's not how growth is. It really does take time. It's gradual. And I understand the sentiment behind it because there's still videos up and posts up that are very hateful and ignorant in a lot of ways and harmful. There's this huge expectation that it's all going to be reworked immediately. Like, yes, that's what we would like, for you to stand up for yourself and be accountable for all of these things. I know we talked about that a lot last time. Like, it makes sense if you've had a change of view to update all of your material to reflect that. But watching this video, it gave me a lot of grace for them and like, wait a second. So this is for real, and they're taking steps. And it's funny because this isn't even necessarily about Paul and Morgan. Like, they're almost an afterthought, I guess, because it was their reaction to the 24 hours and to Paul and Morgan's reaction.
Babe! I got you on camera smiling in a cute and sexy way when I cursed.
On our very first date ever, I told you about like how I thought we were like really special and unique because we were really good friends at that point, and how I thought we could have like a YouTube channel. Like, that's my dream, to do like YouTube or social media with you.
She hates filming with her sister, and I can definitely appreciate that she actually gets to be herself with Dave. So it makes 150% sense that she would much rather do a podcast channel with him than to continue the Girl Defined.
Absolutely. I mean, you can, if for those who might just be listening and not seeing the video right now, like, it's a lot of positive energy between them. They're laughing, they're looking at each other and smiling, and it genuinely looks like they're just comfortable in their own skin with each other, which is something we haven't really seen played out between them, especially people like Paul and Morgan. It's really cute to watch. Like, I just got excited. I'm like, oh, look at them. They're flirting like they're like young and in
Yes.
love again.
Exactly. Like their bodies are turned towards each other. He reaches over and
Mm-hmm.
touches her a lot. She reaches over and touches him a lot. Like this is the body language that we keep telling Paul and Morgan that they are missing.
Right.
And somehow it goes over their head, or they just simply cannot stomach each other enough to be able to
Right.
make it happen. It's adorable. For anyone who's just listening to this on Spotify or whatever, it's super cute. I love it.
And you can really tell that Bethany would love nothing more than for him to be like, that's all that they do is just the two of them together in videos. But you can tell that in her eyes, she's like, would you just stay with me forever and we do this together? It's really cute.
Yep.
I'm liking what I'm seeing.
You just have so much to offer the world, and I love how we are together, and I feel like this side of me is so much more of like my real self, like the 24 hours with, and because I'm not teaching like so much of what people see of me on the Girl Defined channel, and it might be just like change it. It's like a different vibe, but this is really fun because it's just like it's more like sharing our life, and I love it.
Oh, you want them to convince me?
Aw,
Let's
hugging
do
again.
24 hours with Paul and Morgan. They were here for the weekend. They were awesome, and they did such a good job facilitating and our conversations and running around with the camera and being very non-invasive about it. And they were very respectful to all of the random stipulations about, you know, don't film our kids and, you
don't
know,
film our neighborhood, don't film our
and
Safety
keep it
first.
more focused on conversations and things like that. But it wasn't originally gonna, like, I wasn't gonna be in it.
She doesn't want to talk about it.
No, she
It's
doesn't.
not my video.
It was supposed to be Girl Defined. It was supposed to be like Kristen and Bethany, 24 hours with Girl Defined. Long story short, we couldn't make the schedules work, like even literally over the months, because Kristen is an extremely busy person and she homeschools her two boys full time.
Yes, I'm sure Kristen was quote unquote very busy.
Yes,
and
exactly.
didn't have time for Paul and Morgan. I mean, she does the podcast with Bethany, which I think they do only like 1 or 2 episodes a month. They wrote the book together, which this is definitely a criticism that we are maintaining on Bethany. She wrote an extremely transphobic book, but it was written with Kristen. So I have hope that with the deconstruction and making friends with Tanner of Zelf on the Shelf, you know, having LGBTQ friends can really make a huge difference in how you see and how you treat LGBTQ people.
Exactly.
So it just kind of like morphed. It really wasn't supposed to be a video about like Bethany with Girl Defined and then Dave, but it kind of became a video truly about me and then my life with you. So that was not part of the plan.
Yeah, and I kind of saw it.
Which
the
is the book
wheels
title
turning
of
in
theirs.
Paul's head, you know, as he's starting to have conversations, you know, at our house and about some of our differences, and he's like, "Hey, Morgan, I think this might be a good direction," you know. And then
was like
that is spot on.
Yes, Paul does not really plan very well. He's
He's Paul.
He's Paul, but he knows like what the juicy goss is gonna be. Like he knows how to rage bait. He knows how to do those things. So I could absolutely see him really cluing in,
Just jumping on board. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was a
Paul
great
and Morgan
impression
were both
too.
a real joy to have here, and they were up for just about anything. They had hardly gotten here in our house, and I was like, "All right, cold plunge. You up for the cold plunge?" It was really cool, you know, driving around and just having these conversations with them, and they were great question askers. And
well, it started with you. I picked them up at the airport. We weren't filming at all. We come here. And they knew, like, I had to leave right away to go film with Kristen. Like, we have very limited recording spots because we're both moms and it's super busy. Like I mentioned, her schedule. So we literally, Kristen and I record like once a month together, and it just happened to be that day. So I was like, I have to go. And then Paul and Morgan were going to come for the last hour. And then they'd come home with me and we'd start filming. So Dave was kind of like, they weren't planning on hanging out with you because you were so busy. But as soon as they walked in the door, you were like, hey. And so it ended up being like this.
It's time for a break.
It was this whole afternoon, like hours with you that was completely like unplanned. So that was kind of cool.
And it was a lot of fun and challenging and brought up a lot of things for us in our relationship. And it should be fairly clear that there's some differences that we have and things that came up. And it was a lot of, it was some really good conversations. Actually, I think really benefited our marriage in a lot of ways.
In the long run.
She's like,
More hugs. That's so cute.
that someday
No, I didn't mean that.
there will be, have had been some benefits of said weekend. And I would say the number one benefit is just honesty, just bringing up the sorts of conversations that we have, but we hadn't had conversations like we did in the video in that topic. We had very honest conversations in other areas of our lives, but in that specific topic of specifically like the outward facing Bethany and the world and Girl Defined and the critics and all this stuff, we hadn't really gone there for a while like that deeply.
Because we know we disagree.
Because we know there are some disagreements. And
so it's like, why rehash it? We haven't ever gotten to the point where we see eye to eye. So it's like, we know, it's just kind of like we agree to disagree. And that encompasses a lot, not just like how we view in that conversation. It was like the haters, but it's like beliefs, what I do with Girl Defined, the stuff I write about, talk about. We've known we don't see eye to eye convictions wise on some of that stuff. So it can just be stressful to like rehash it when like, why are you going to rehash it? We know we don't agree. So like, let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, we will rehash it if apparently a small film crew comes to town.
A small film crew comes.
Right. And this is so real. So many marriages, there are things that you disagree on, but it's not a big enough deal for you to really make a thing out of it until a third party brings it up. And then suddenly you're in this bigger discussion with this third party and you're finding things out about yourself, about your partner, about how you work together. And that's super duper healthy. Just putting that out there.
Exactly. Well, and I like the fact that they're telling us now, like they're being honest too with the fact that they weren't going to be filming with Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sounds like he was just doing what he wanted, to do, and he had company and he's like, oh, join us. And then it opened up these conversations. They had never talked about it. How does this specifically pertain to what you do for a living and the books that you've written? Like they had never really put it out in the open like that before. It makes me want to give Bethany more grace that she knew that this was how he believed. She didn't know it was all going to come out like this all over the internet. I'm sure that couldn't have been easy to wrap your own feelings and emotions and brain around it.
And the queen of the list of questions, I am so happy that they have had conversations that are truly organic and not based on 150 questions to ask your spouse.
This is more real than we've seen them ever, probably.
So first off, I just want to say, like, anyone who's giving Paul and Morgan any grief from that
let's talk
video,
about the grief that Paul and Morgan get.
Like, they came and stayed with us. Like, we got a firsthand look at these people. We've been together with them in person one other time, and we've just connected through, like, now, like, as friends, long distance, because they're just awesome people. They're so amazing, and they were so kind and genuine and, like, so full of integrity and, like, to their word on everything they said. They gave us the final, like say on anything in the video to like have it removed, whatever. Like they are just so awesome. And like as a married couple behind the scenes, it's like we have seen them and they are just so kind to one another. Like Paul is so kind to like taking care of Morgan and Morgan's like so kind to him. They're just an awesome couple. Like we are genuinely inspired by their marriage and by them being here.
Yeah, I was particularly inspired by Paul and the way that he treated Morgan with respect and with care and looked out for her, and I liked their dynamic.
I have thoughts about this.
Yes.
So my first thought is, if they did actually see that behind the scenes Paul and Morgan are nice to each other, Why the
Hmm.
fuck don't they do that on their show? Why are they
Right.
so mean to each other in front of the camera if they're nice to each other elsewhere? Like, one of their biggest critiques that they get from the haters is that they're not nice to each other.
Right. Exactly. And I haven't gotten to the point where I trust what Dave and Bethany are saying right now, just because it's a it's a smart move on their end to praise Paul and Morgan and not burn any bridges, and oh, we had a great time. Y'all would be so surprised how much they loved each other, and I don't know, but I still don't necessarily think that this is anything other than just a smart PR move on their part.
See, exactly. It feels like they don't want to feed into what Paul and Morgan did to Isaiah, where he was just getting dragged in the comments, and Isaiah's followers were getting
Hmm.
mad at Paul, and there was all this animosity. And so I think they're really trying hard to make sure that there isn't that animosity. I want the message to be what they said in the video and not some piddly argument between influencers, you know?
Right. It's also a different response on their end. So when 24 Hours came out, there was a really good video by Fundy Fridays
Mm-hmm.
with Jen. And Paul got onto her account, their account,
Yep.
and said, you know, I just wanted to ask you guys a question. You say that there's a world that that is possible to exist where you guys like us. What can we do about that? And a lot of people were naming some progressive Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody said, Dave, like, we like Dave. His response is, well, I would say that Dave wouldn't go to the authority of scripture first
Mm-hmm.
in his life and all of that. And so everyone's like, what? Wait a second. You're just saying he's not a good enough Christian, like, because he's too progressive? That just didn't make sense. And it really caused a lot more confusion because as Dave says, he had conversations in private with Paul, so he was going off of more information than what even we had. The fact that Paul and Morgan made a response video to their own video, and
Yes.
then they made a response video to this video, and they're more about the drama. They are
Yeah.
more about the interaction from opposing sides.
Yep.
Whereas I think in this video with Bethany and Dave, they're opening up a huge window of people to reach out to that might be in marriages that have different religious beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
or one person is going through deconstruction and the other is just thinking about it. How do you deal with that? How do you communicate with each other? They could take this a lot further.
Oh, they could have some fantastic advice for other couples that are in a mixed faith marriage going through deconstruction, because he is so thoughtful. He is extremely self-reflective, and he sees an actual therapist, which definitely shines through in the way that
Yes.
he talks about things. So he really does have a solid place that he is coming from. They could really go far with this. I'm really hoping actually that
Me
she
too.
pivots away from her sexy sex all over the place
Yes.
and her, you know,
Yes.
homophobia and transphobia with Girl Defined, and can
Right.
rebrand as this couple giving couples advice, because that would also enable her to get out from underneath of her parents, because she makes about $40,000 a year from Girl Defined, and a large part of
Mm.
that is funded by their parents. And so if she can move to something that is separate from them, she would actually have a lot more financial autonomy, which would allow her a lot
Right.
more public autonomy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That has to be a scary place to be, where your livelihood depends on a belief system. I mean, pastors go through it. Like, if I have a change of belief, it's going to completely change how I make money and how I provide for my family. And that's one of the scariest parts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember in high school when I really started questioning things, like if I knew what deconstruction was, I definitely would not have identified with that. I would have just said that I was, revising my beliefs, making sure I knew why I believed what I believed. I'm still a Christian. I just maybe am not the exact same kind of Christian as my parents or my extended family are. I would have been really, I don't want to say offended, but I would say definitely made insecure by someone suggesting that I was deconstructing at that point. But
Right.
one of my
Right.
main thought processes was that in order for me to live the life that was authentic to myself, I needed to be away from financial control of my family. I had to become financially independent so that way I could have independence of thought. Because in my family, it was extremely difficult to have any kind of differing theology and whatnot that you were open about. If you were,
Yeah.
accepting or affirming of LGBTQ people, if you gave grace to people who had abortions, all of those things would have really set off some huge arguments within my family and could have potentially affected my livelihood. I know specifically as a tween and a teen, and just realizing more and more each year that yes, I am definitely queer, I was terrified that someone would find out about that before I was financially independent, because if that happened,
Yeah.
literally my life was at risk, because
Yeah.
I could absolutely see my parents sending me as a gay teen off to a conversion therapy camp. They were huge
Yeah.
on Focus on the Family, and Focus on the Family had, what was it, Love Wins Out or something like that, that was
Oh.
conversion therapy. I could absolutely see them
Oof.
doing that. That is something that I want no part of. None
Yeah.
whatsoever. Even looking into it in the 90s, I saw people who were harmed by it. And I
Wow.
just
Yeah.
knew that was something that I could not let happen to myself. I never had a journal. I never talked to friends. I had
Right.
no
I
one
know.
that I could
Yeah.
talk to about my sexuality or even my thoughts about gender, because it was literally like a threat on my life. So gaining that
Yeah.
financial independence was absolutely key to make all the rest of the parts and pieces of my life happen. And I am
Yes.
so lucky that I was able to make that happen when I was, right out of college. I've always said, through my deconstruction story, that my ex-husband, we got married when I had just turned 22, and it was, oh goodness, he created this safe space where I could have questions and I could have discussions about my
Okay.
sexuality, not my gender. He wasn't that progressive, but
Yeah.
he was very open to letting me explore the sexuality side of things, at least, and to
Okay.
explore
Yeah.
not being a Christian. Again, he wasn't that progressive. He was really anti-Semitic, so he was very upset when I
Mm.
picked Judaism.
Yeah.
But, for those initial, like 6, 7 years, it was absolutely critical, between 22 and 28. That is extremely formative for every single person on this planet. And he
Mm.
enabled me to make that just a beautiful, safe space to do things. And I feel like with Dave and Bethany, Dave is creating a safe space for Bethany to be able to question, and vice versa, because they are obviously
Mhm.
so loving and so caring towards each other. And, they've done a lot of agree to disagree. And so that means
Yeah.
that, I'm not going to stop you from
Exactly.
investigating this or that. I'm not going to get mad at you for listening to this podcast or reading that book. And that is so key. I'm so glad they are able to do that, because that is something that I think is such a blessing, truly a blessing.
Yeah. It's so true, because thinking about where she came from and her family, and the fact that even her mom is still out on social media making posts about just basically all of the fundamentalist things.
Mm-hmm.
But after this video, even, she has posted like, dating women, make sure that you are not dating someone who would question God, or if
Yes.
you're dating and engaged and they're not a Christian, you can break up with them. If you're married, you have to stay with them. But
Right.
if you don't need a divorce, then it's okay. You can just leave them if they're not a Christian.
And you should
But
do
actually saw,
that.
right, and you should. That's what you're supposed to do. I think she posted this yesterday, but
Literally
this is
hours after the Dave and
Bethany's.
Bethany video went up.
Was it? Okay. My husband and I have 5 daughters and 3 sons. During the dating years, we would always tell our kids, time is your friend. One of our daughters was dating a young man that seemed to want to push things along faster than she was comfortable with. We encouraged them to take their time. If there were going to be any red flags with this young man, it would take time to see them. And she goes on to talk, but obviously talking about Bethany,
Yes.
Dave and Bethany. But yeah, like, I can see even these types of things pushing Bethany further away,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not the support that she needs from her mother. And for it to be so public like that, I would imagine that's pretty hurtful.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe it was last night she posted one that said 10 questions to ask yourself. Now, I'm just going to go over the top 3. I'm not going to go through all 10, but she said, number 1, is my relationship with God stronger because I'm dating this person? 2, do I ignore the red flags? And 3, am I afraid of being alone so I stay in the relationship? And I'm like, Bethany was the latest to be married.
So rude.
And so this is so
Yeah.
pointed at her, and it's, oh goodness. It's so gross, and I really feel for her because, when
Yeah.
when my family has seen me posting things that they don't like, they just text me privately. They don't
Right.
usually, vague post about it online.
Whatever the reels they're posting or things they're saying now, it's like people, I don't know, people just want to find something about it, but we have like nothing but good things to say about. I mean, I think that's true.
Well, I'm very positive. I'm just
Yeah.
very positive
Yeah.
about them and about, yeah.
After the hard conversation,
Let's not
we've
mince
had
our
a
words.
couple of hard weeks
Yeah.
in the sense that like we've just pressed into a lot of this stuff rather than just like moving on. It's been more of like a, let's just like be super honest and like seek outside counsel.
Yeah.
A few days after Paul and Morgan were here, you had our pastor come over. We literally were sat in our living room for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
He was just kind of like a third party listening to like the 3-hour version of what you saw at the dinner table, like, but and so much more, just trying to like figure out like, okay, what do I need to change? Does he need to change? What if we just can't, like, we just see differently? How can we love each other still? How can we give each other grace? And it's been like one thing like that after another, I feel.
Yeah. So a lot of people are wondering, Dave, to what he sounds like he's deconstructing, to what degree?
Yeah.
And you have people that are kind of more like, oh, he's a Christian but nice, or he's like not, he's just compromised his faith, or he doesn't have strong faith, or whatever.
Or some people are mad at Paul for like insinuating
Mad at Paul for
that you're deconstructing.
Yeah, which I would say in that case, with Paul and I, we also had more private conversations, and so Paul's operating with more information than what you see in the video. Bottom line is, I had a new level of mental crisis that week that Paul and Morgan were here. And it started before they got here with some random men's group stuff I was doing, and as well as certain questions that I was asking. Even while Paul and Morgan were here, I was asking some people that know me pretty well, or what are my greatest weaknesses, and
You were just like, you were inviting
I was just
all
going
this
for
criticism.
it. I was inviting a lot of criticism. I did this thing called, this like hot seat thing where you sit there and these guys kind of like, you stand or sit there and the guys poke at you and try to kind of get you to get provoked, and then we talk about it. Talk about what comes up.
So it was
Who
kind of
knows?
a rough week before Paul and Morgan got there because you were like having all this like inviting all this criticism
I was
into your life,
inviting-
and you were kind of like,
I was grumpy, and then I found,
More
and then I
hugs.
found, one of the things that got me through.
what?
For the first time in, I don't know, 15 years, Billy Joel releases a new
Oh
song.
yes, that's right.
And it is phenomenal, and I loved it so much. Maybe you love me, maybe you don't. Maybe you learn to, and maybe you won't. I was mowing the lawn before Paul and Morgan got here, and I was listening
Okay,
to this song.
hold
and it
up,
reminded me-
Dave. Where can we see more of this?
On
Sitting
his
at the piano,
Instagram.
singing. All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
I need to find his Instagram.
correct. He's done a few videos where he is, and this is such an adorable format. He will be at the piano and he will be playing and singing various things, and then he'll like stop and he'll talk about stuff for a bit, and then he'll sing and play for a bit, and then he'll stop and he'll talk a little bit more, and like the songs play into where his thought process is. It's really smart.
I love that. I
Yeah.
don't know why I have not seen it, but I'm going to get on that immediately.
Yes. I want to say it was like spring, early summer last year when he had a couple big ones, because there was a really touching one that he did where he talked about his mental health and how
Okay.
he had really struggled in some dark and toxic places with Bethany, working with a therapist to get through all of that and to figure out a healthy place to
Mhm.
be, because honestly some of the things that he copped to were really toxic. Like if he had leaned into those things,
Oh.
I would feel very differently about him. But he saw those,
Okay.
intrusive thoughts popping up in his head, and he was like,
Right.
that's not good. Let me work on that.
Yes.
And so again, that's the
Yes.
self-reflective, introspective nature that Dave has.
Yeah. Which is so helpful in this, and I think allows him to give Bethany grace as well,
Mhm.
like to take her time with processing all of this. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
absolutely.
excited. It's cool to watch.
Yes.
And so I was already in that space. And then we had a ton of conversations with Paul and Morgan and with Bethany about all these things. And I have a lot of differences with Paul, Morgan, and Bethany when it comes to just ideologically and, values, Christianity, all kinds of stuff. So then we had that dinner table conversation. The next day, there was more stuff, more conversation. So then I had more emotional, issues and crashes and stuff. And it had to do with our marriage, and it had to do with like love, and it had to do with faith and God and Jesus and surrender versus, like pull it together and just like, and basically what happened from all of that is there's a lot of different points that I won't get into because it takes so long. But what basically happened is I got to this point of like, I've been circling deconstruction, just to use the term loosely. I'm okay with the term.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it.
I'm not against it at all. I think there's this misconception that I'm against it, but it's more just like when you typically hear the term deconstructing, like I typically think of someone like completely deconstructing from their faith. And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still very much like a believer in Jesus and very much think what the, like trying to understand the word and living it out practically is important.
Did
So
she listen to
I don't
our
really
last
I don't really
podcast?
care for the label, I guess, but I'm okay with it.
I love it.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the term for sure, and I'll often use it. I know it's popular and it's kind of, rings a bell, so it's kind of easy. But there are kind of two different types of deconstruction that I think of when it comes to the popular stuff that is kind of happening in this trend, the trend that's happening. And one is it's almost like you're consciously deconstructing in the sense of you're actively questioning beliefs and like, is this true? Is that true? And it's almost like you're taking things apart. And then there's the kind of deconstruction where people describe it as pulling a thread and it's just kind of like the whole thing falls apart. It's like you're not even going towards everything. It's just kind of like everything's sort of crumbling, and then you're just in this crisis mode and nothing's left. And I would say for me, It feels a little bit more towards the first one, but I'm sure there's probably a mix. The things that changed for me through
That is so true. So true. Because there will usually be, everybody questions various things. And so there will usually be like this thing or that thing that, you're consciously deconstructing, but then something will happen. Some moment will happen and a whole bunch of stuff like just the Jenga tower. More than a thread. I want
Yes.
to call it a Jenga tower, Like you pull
Yes.
this out, you pull this out, you pull this out, you're fine. And then there's that one block that you remove and like the whole thing comes tumbling down.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think it's really intuitive that he's able to even notice those two differences within deconstruction. There are people who are going to be more actively questioning throughout their lives. They're more willing to go deep down into what do I actually believe. And then sometimes there'll be like an event or something that throws you into crisis mode and it looks so much different. It can take a toll on you emotionally because then, I know we've talked about this before, but losing that sense of identity and purpose and community, and that in itself can be a crisis. So I
Yeah.
feel like everybody has different version, like different amounts of each, and
Mm-hmm.
at different times. Like there might be at one particular year where you're just like living life, actively enjoying life, but also actively questioning, and it's peaceful and encouraging. And then there's moments where the questioning is really hard and you want to just avoid it and run away from it and wish that you were wrong this whole time.
Exactly. Exactly. There are moments where you really want it to all be wrong, and there are moments where you really want it to be all true. And
Yes.
it's like grief because it includes a lot of grieving. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not linear. And you'll feel fine
Yeah.
for a while and then something will happen and suddenly
Mm-hmm.
it sparks and you're back in it and you're grieving what you could have
What
had.
you lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's especially whenever you are coming from a very devout family and having these disparate beliefs is something that will likely cause a fracture in your family of
Yes.
origin, and nobody wants that. There's
Right.
this boomer thing going around Facebook, and James Dobson sends out emails to parents about this,
Ugh.
what
Yeah.
how to get your child back after they deconstructed and left the faith, blah blah blah.
Oh, he has all the answers. Oh, great.
Yeah. And they want to act like it's this brand new trend, but no, people have been doing this forever. They just used to call it estrangement.
Right.
And now
Yes.
we call it low contact, no contact, etc.
Right.
And
Exactly.
nobody wants to lose their faith. Nobody wants
Right.
to go no contact with their family. Like these are not things
Exactly.
that we dream of. These are things that we have to do for our own emotional, mental, physical stability and safety. I have gotten some pushback about distancing myself from my family. I don't really usually get into it with them. I'm just like, look, you don't know the whole story. Let's not talk about this. Let's agree to disagree on this
Yes.
one. Um
Sometimes that's the best choice. Yeah.
yeah, it's so hard because I just hit my 1 year no contact anniversary, and
Yeah.
there were a lot of emotions mixed up in
I
that.
bet.
Because on the one hand, I have had so much growth, so much mental and emotional stability. I've had so many positive things come out of removing that toxic influence on my life. And even
Yeah.
now, like, I hate having to name it as that toxic influence on my life.
It doesn't feel right. It's like your
No,
family. So it shouldn't
right.
be that way. I understand
Correct.
that.
Especially in fundamentalist families, they really push hard on your family is the only people who are really going to be there for you. They're the only people that are really going to love
Right.
you. They're the only people who are really going to know you. And so you have to foster and maintain and deepen these familial relationships because those are the
Mhm.
only ones that really matter.
And not only that, but you have to protect the image of these relationships. So
Ugh.
voicing your own very personal beliefs can actually be, taken as an offense that you're trying to ruin someone else's reputation
Ugh.
or
Yes.
put a bad taste in someone else's mouth for Christianity, and therefore, affecting their witness. And that was a lot, that was a huge thing for me to realize it's okay for me to speak only purely for myself.
Correct. Because that, oh God, that whole, how dare you make us look bad kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whenever I have spoken publicly, on social media, on my podcast, etc., about growing up homeschooled, my mom has lashed out on me on so many occasions about
Yeah.
that because it's not just like she's like, "Hey, I didn't realize you felt this way." And, I thought we were doing things the right way. No, 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 no. She
No.
comes at me with the walls of text about how I'm ungrateful and I'm being misleading, I'm lying about things. Oh, you were such a happy child. You couldn't have been anxious or depressed or
Mm.
scared or whatever. And
I wasn't allowed to look that way, right?
correct, correct. I had to be joyful. I had
Yeah.
to be happy. I had to be involved. And I had to toe the line, especially being a missionary kid, because there was a lot of like pre church talks in the car of like, hey, we're going to this church. They're extra conservative, so you can't talk about this. Do not let them
Oh,
know that we let you
wow.
listen to this kind of music or watch this kind of movie. For those churches, and there were an awful lot of them because we were GARBC, which is really IFB but Calvinist, and
Okay.
so it's so hard to break out of that, and there is such a intense and really violent response from the people that are still in because you are making them look bad. It's everything that you said, and their whole public facing that they've been doing for decades. I guarantee you Heidi is exactly like that behind the scenes as
Oh,
well.
oh yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, it's coming out already in public
Mm.
forms. It's sad to me because I know that what that comes from is a place of insecurity that they didn't do a good enough job
Mm-hmm.
raising us. They didn't do what they set out to do, which was for us to be these missionaries that shared the message across the world or does something miraculous for the church. So I feel like they give themselves that pressure. We did everything we were told to do. Even we did Bill Gothard, what he told us to do, and
Mm-hmm.
focus on the family, all of these things. So we deserve to have children who were the product of that. That's what we were promised.
Yeah.
And so now that we're saying, actually, no, that isn't how it works to be a human. So when you make decisions about your faith, it just has to be very personal. Something that I deal with a lot too is how can I not feel that shame of not being a good daughter, right? Because
Yes.
I know that my morals come from a good place, and I still have the desire to be a good person and to help people and to help other people. And I just, it's really sad to me that I wouldn't be seen as like a good person who's trying to do good.
I was always praised for having a servant's heart, and that has
Oh
stuck
yeah.
with me throughout my entire life. Almost all of my jobs have been in helper position. In my, off time, I'm doing things like political activism and whatnot, again, to improve people's lives. And then in this new era that I'm in, I'm helping people through support groups and through the podcast. I have always been very servant minded, just not about the church.
Yeah. Well, and it feels so different when your motivation is to make a difference for the cause instead of your motivation being getting to heaven, having jewels in your crown.
Oh my God. It's
That just
so
goes back to
cringe.
right? Like if your motivation for doing something is selfish, okay, that's people do that. But then to make it out to not be that, it's just slimy, as Morgan would
Yeah,
say. It's
exactly.
slimy. Ew.
These moments of like surrendering, trying to just find my identity in Christ and get strength through that, and to be more emotionally stable and all of this stuff. It basically, something broke that
His shelf broke.
over that week, and I didn't feel tied down anymore to like basically anything that would keep me from fully questioning my beliefs and my faith when it comes to this stuff. And I even found myself wanting Christianity to not be true, just because of my own personal experiences with trying to have it be real in my own life, and just the disappointment that I found where it hasn't my perspective, it hasn't really seemed to help me. It hasn't really seemed to make me any more of a better husband or a better man. It seems like when I do other things that are more taking charge of my own development, it seems like I improve more. And then it seems like when I try to find my identity in Christ, it just doesn't seem to work. And so I got to this point where it's like, I hope this isn't true, because I don't want to go through life always having to think I'm the worst in order to find the life in Christ, and that whole thing where it sort of requires you to feel really bad, or to at least admit, you're just sort of nothing and you have nothing, and so that's why you need Jesus. And isn't that such great news? It's like it's just stopped being good news for me.
Oh my God, all of this, because
So much.
I've talked at length about how in the Christian core, it's so hard to see that any version of it, whether it is progressive, conservative, fundamentalist, the core is you are awful. Your
Yep.
righteousnesses are as filthy rags. You can do
Yep.
nothing but sin without God, and the wages of sin are death. You deserve death. You deserve nothing good. It is only by grace and mercy of God that you will receive anything good. And you better follow his rules and lay prostrate in front of him in order to get that grace and mercy, or to
Mm-hmm.
thank him for that grace and mercy, depending on if you believe in Calvinism or not. But it's
Right.
it's so toxic,
It's
and I
hard work that doesn't pay off.
exactly, and I struggle so hard to have any kind of positive view of any version of Christianity at this point, other than maybe say like Unitarian Universalist.
Right. Yeah.
um I just, the way that it tells you to feel about yourself, I to this day, 22 years after leaving the church, to this day, I am working hard in therapy with EMDR and whatnot to try
Mhm.
and process through and move past these negative cognitions about self-worth because of that
Yeah.
programming that I got growing up. I truly have
Yeah.
never known life without anxiety. One of my earliest memories in my entire life is when I am 3 years old. I am underneath the covers in my room, and I am terrified about my family going to heaven and me going to hell. And so I ask Jesus
Oh.
into my heart so that way I will go to heaven with my family. And then I run out to the living room and I tell my mom and dad, and everybody is so excited about this. Now, for a long
Mm.
time, I thought that that was maybe like a fever dream, or nah, that couldn't have been how it really went. No. When I was 40, so just a couple years ago, my mom gave me what she called a story that I wrote. So that way I would take it,
Oh.
right? And I
Okay.
read it, and it's me at 5 years old writing down this testimony of what I did when I was 3 years old. And it is
Wow.
exactly what I remember. And that was a
Mm,
really, really hard thing to read.
that's terrifying. Yeah.
And it did not achieve the effect that my mom was going for. She really
No.
wanted it to, rekindle my faith and realize that this is something I have believed my entire life. And,
Right.
there's this hope and joy that I will go to heaven. But I just
Yeah.
read it and I saw a 5 year old and a 3 year old that were terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yep.
not something to praise. That is not something to find joy in. Like that is sadistic to find a
Yeah.
terrified toddler as a beautiful thing.
Yeah. That right there, that fear and just pure terror that wells up in your chest, we know now is anxiety, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to use that feeling. They would use shame. I knew that I was innocent, but this has to be the foundation of your belief. It has to be that you are guilty. And I think that's why it's one of the things that sticks with us the longest is this like self hatred, because like we just can't do it no matter how hard we try. It's absolutely impossible for us to ever be good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's this feeling that like you had when you were 3 years old and you're like terrified, but then it felt better after you prayed, right? And your family's all
Mm-hmm.
hugging you and like this is amazing. That's the good feeling, the comfort of people who love you. But we were told that that was God's forgiveness. it,
Mm-hmm.
it was just so skewed. And even throughout, being a teenager, and oh, I was listening to this rock music CD that I'm not allowed to. That anxiety wasn't because I felt like it was the wrong thing to do. It was because there was a chance that I could get caught and be in trouble for it. And if I confessed and said, hey, this is what I did, I'm really sorry, then I would feel better because then I'm getting the comfort from those people instead of their judgment.
Correct.
It feels so manipulative when you take it out and look at it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that is what is called a trauma bond. The people who are abusing you use a positive and negative reinforcement system so that way you think
Mhm.
that the abuse is a good thing and you bond with the abuser even though what they're doing to you
Yeah.
makes you feel bad on the inside, they do enough to reinforce it as, oh, that bad feeling is a good thing.
Right. That's the Holy Spirit working in you. That's showing you you need to do exactly what we're telling you to do.
He's
And then they
convicting
stay
you.
and they depend on you. Yeah. He's convicting you. Oh my gosh. I hate like just
Yes.
my heart just skipped a beat when I heard that. Where like I get
Right.
anxiety still about it. Like God is just convicting me to do this. No, like there's something unsettled in your body knows it. It's a conflict. And the easiest solution that you're offered is just to ignore how you actually feel about it. I feel like Dave has a really good grasp on this good news isn't good news for me anymore.
Yeah.
Like I like how he put a lot of that, like finding identity in Christ. It basically didn't work. Like
Yeah.
I did everything I absolutely could have done. I tried to make it work as hard as I possibly can, and it doesn't work. And so, do you want me to be disingenuous? Do you want me to just go along and lie? I mean, I think some people would probably say yeah.
Well, it's
But
funny that you say, do you want me to lie? When I was in my 20s, I effectively did lie to my family. I
mm,
kept a very thick wall between my day to day life with my friends and coworkers and whatnot, and then my life when I would go visit family. I really didn't talk about my life whenever I got around family. I might talk about, my husband or a movie that I watched that I really liked that was, not too
mhm.
racy, but I didn't talk
Yeah.
about my life. I kept a very
Yeah.
thick wall there. I definitely continued to not tell anyone that I was queer. I had this
Right.
marriage to this man, and so that's all you need to know about my romantic life. When I was 30, 31, and I finally came out to my parents, I had already come out to my sister and a bunch of cousins and stuff. But then I finally came out to my parents, and they were mad at me that I had lied to them for so long. They're like, why didn't you trust
Wow.
us? And I was scared that you were going to disown me. And they were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't trust us. We've always put ourselves as trustworthy people, blah, 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 blah. And then less than a year later, they disowned me.
That is just wild to me. Were there other people involved the first time where they felt pressure to be more accepting, or was it
No,
the
I
exact
talked to
same?
them alone. It was just the three of
Oh,
us.
okay.
There were not other people
Yeah.
involved. By the time they disowned me, they had talked to, people at church, their pastor, etc. And so other people were involved.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was kind of a community pressure to say that either you abandon this life of sin or we abandon you. When we reconciled about a year later, they truly expected me to forgive and forget and to never bring it up and to have zero feelings left over about the fact that they had
Mm,
disowned me and done the ultimate abandonment of me.
right. Yeah, especially after they had already said, why didn't you tell us this earlier?
Yeah, we'll
That doesn't make,
always
well,
love.
that was probably their first like selfish response,
Yeah,
was offense that you didn't tell them earlier. Then later they realized the offense was actually that you don't believe the same things
that I have an identity that they did not pick out
that
for
you,
me. Do you
right.
remember
Yeah.
when we were going through adult children of emotionally immature parents and it talked about roles? You kind of get assigned a role or you find a
Yes.
role that really fits. And then as you age, as relationships change, if you are the emotionally immature person, are trying to maintain that role and not let anybody else in your sphere change their roles. And my
Yeah.
my parents are absolutely on that list because they did not want my relationship with them to change much. I was supposed to continue being the dutiful daughter, followed the rules and did what they said and took their
Yeah.
counsel above basically anything else. They'd always say, you can go to other pastors, do your own reading of the Bible, but
Right.
if you came to a determination, a belief, whatever, that was not what they believed or
What they wanted it to be.
an
Yeah.
allowable variation on what they
Yeah.
believed, that was bad. You did something wrong and
Yeah.
you are no longer following God and God's voice and whatnot. And that's a big part of what Paul and Morgan have said in
Mm-hmm.
response to all of this is that
Those secondary issues are okay.
they were saying in their live this week, how can you get closer to God or follow God if you are not listening to his voice? They were mad that, people who deconstruct listen to
Mm-hmm.
podcasts or read
Yeah.
books or listen to other speakers and are not just following the Bible. They are not,
Right.
the Bible is not sufficient for them. And
Yeah.
I
Because
they
if you read other books, you might have such an open mind that your brain falls out, right?
exactly, that's exactly it. Every time they said that, all I could hear was from Beauty and the Beast when Gaston says it's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and
Yes.
thinking.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so true. And they're not even being like ironic or funny about
Uh-uh.
it.
This is basically, if it's not working for me, then the answer is always, well, you haven't, you really need to know God's love more, um, or you're not trusting him, or you just need to find your identity in him and rest in that. And so it's like it just becomes another work. Like, oh, I'm not resting enough. Why isn't this working? So there was some frustration there. In addition to all the truth claims and all the things that have been circling for the last 8 years for me, even before we were married, all that stuff has been there. I've been very aware of a lot of arguments and podcasts and people and debates and all kinds of stuff. It's not like I've just been in this community where I don't hear influences. It's like I've known a lot about this stuff.
For sure. This wasn't the last
and
few
over
weeks.
time I've read more books and I've learned more and I've seen more, and so, but I've felt constrained by myself, my own inability or lack of desire to challenge certain institutions that I'm a part of, or challenge certain communities, because that would throw things into chaos. That would, it would be hard to go to church. It would be hard to be married to Bethany. It would be hard to do a lot of these things. I'm established in Christian communities because of my own choice to be in a Christian community. It makes it challenging if I'm going to basically say, hey, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore. But over the course of the weekend with Paul and Morgan and with other people, I basically got to a point where it wasn't enough of a reason for me to not take that next step. And for me, it's like just kind of acknowledging all of my questions and doubts just all at once and just being like, actually, I'm not sure this is true. I kind of hope it's not. I say that, but it's like, that's a lot for Bethany to go through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot packed in there. It's definitely not just been since like the Paul and Morgan thing. I feel like you've had a new level of boldness or a new level of freedom to share those things since that weekend. But like, you've been studying this stuff and thinking about this for like years.
And in fact, almost 1 year ago, because it was the time of Lent, but last year, I had something like this happen. I was like talking to a pastor and I was like, I'm not sure I should be taking communion. And we had the question of whether to become members and all this stuff. And basically at that time, I was still kind of in this, okay, I can kind of like make the leap of faith. And so I just sort of took this leap of like, all right, I can believe, I don't know it, and I can't, this is not so rational, but I'll just like, okay, that's what faith is. Faith is just kind of, dedicating yourself and trusting and, okay, so I can, say what I believe even though I don't like feel it, because what is belief anyway, and I kind of used just relativism on myself and be like, well, we don't know anyway, so you just might as well dedicate yourself or whatever. And so, okay, all right, I'm a Christian and I can hold this and I can, whatever. And so that happened a year ago, and I stayed in the Christian community, but as kind of like giving assent to this stuff and taking communion and being a part of this. And so that's what's different now. I basically got to a point where I was like, I don't need to hold up any of that. I don't need my friends to think that I'm one of them in this sense. I don't need people on the internet to think. I mean, that's not really as much of a concern, I would say, in some ways. But,
holla at you, Paul.
it's really more like my marriage, my church community, basically the life that I have. A lot of my work has been in the Christian space, so it's just so much of that. It feels like I finally got the balls to basically be honest about things that I've thought for a long time. And I have to apologize to Bethany because I haven't always been honest with her. And when we got married, I had already started deconstruction. And I had read quite a lot fewer books when we got married, and had listened to podcasts and stuff, and was already very friendly towards certain forms of progressive Christianity and stuff like that. And when I got married to Bethany, I thought, well, this is going to be a problem because I wanted Bethany and I love her. And so at the time I was like, this is just going to cause problems in our relationship. So I was just like, all right, I believe that the Bible is your word and I accept this authority and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of tried to push myself over the edge to make it work. And that was disingenuous and a lack of integrity, honestly. And at the time, it was a weak thing to do. And I didn't really know how to stand up and just say, this is what I think, in the face of the anxiety that it could cause both in other people and in myself.
Okay, so Jordan from Jordan and McKay made a comment about this, and it was basically the same thought that I had, coming from a therapy type of sphere. But when he says that he was being disingenuous and that it was a weak thing to do, I think that is, negative self-talk that is happening. I don't think that is entirely objective, because when you're in it like that and you've been so deep in it for your whole life, you don't really know that you don't believe yet. You know that it's
Right.
hard. You know that you have questions. You know that you are struggling with your faith. But people will constantly tell you about all these other people that struggled with their faith. And it's okay, because in the end, they had a stronger faith. So keep plugging at it, fake it till you make it. Like, they will tell you to do these things that he was doing.
Mhm.
And I think that he's really being too hard on himself when he says that, like he was lying to Bethany, he was being disingenuous. You're
Yeah.
also not given the communication tools or the self-awareness tools to be able to communicate about this. He could have had conversations with Bethany saying, I'm really questioning this, or I'm really struggling with this. And she probably would have responded with, okay, well, let's pray together about this. Let's,
Right.
talk to a pastor. Let's read through this book or that book together. Let's become stronger together. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's possible she would have dumped him, but she really liked
Right.
him.
She really does love him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think she probably would have tried to help him. It's a coulda, woulda, shoulda situation. Who knows exactly how the millions of factors would have come together on that, but I definitely think he's being too hard on himself. When
Yeah.
I was 16, 17, 18, and really questioning things, there is no way that I would have seen myself completely leaving the faith. No way.
Right. Oh, yeah. Same.
Even when I was in my early 20s, after seeing some really awful fucked up shit at my Funda university and then experiencing so much good at my secular university, I just couldn't see myself not identifying that way, because
Yeah.
this is different for everybody, but a lot of my identity was wrapped up in Christianity, in that very specific form of Christianity. And I have a feeling, people that ran in the peace circles like Dave and Bethany, that's a big component for your life.
Yeah, and when he was talking about that feeling that you get, the feeling of what the reaction would be, that's the biggest fear, is like, this is going to affect the people that I care about.
Mhm.
Is it worth it? I do think also that Dave is trying to say, I'm taking accountability for these things. I don't want to make excuses for myself. I feel like he's saying to himself, it would have been really great if I could have told her all of these things at the beginning. I wish that I could have done it this way. I think you're right, though. I mean, I think he's being too hard on himself. You want to do it in the most gracious way possible,
Yeah.
because you want people to understand, this is about me. This is not about you. And it's hard to come across without being selfish when you say that. I didn't feel confident enough in where I was at to sabotage your career. But I don't even think he's processed through all of that quite yet.
No, definitely not. Someone on Fundy Snark posted today a letter to Bethany. You are allowed to feel your feelings, good, bad, and ugly. You're allowed to feel confused. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to feel sad. They are not you being unsupportive. Working through them is supportive. And I get the impression Dave will hold your hand as you go. That's 100%. And
I
that
love that.
that is the sentiment that has been echoed by literally thousands of people in Fundy Snark. And Paul and Morgan and even
Yeah.
Bethany sometimes, they want to call us haters and everything, but truly at our heart, we don't hate them as people. We
Right.
hate
Yeah.
the evil things that get done. We hate the harmful messages and the harmful actions. Now, granted, there are some exceptions. I don't think Carissa could ever be redeemed in my eyes. She has done far too much harm to her children. But for the most part, I see a lot of potential for reconciliation, potential for redemption in just about everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I'm sorry for selling you a picture of myself that's not been true and making it seem like I believe a certain thing or am a certain way in order to make you feel better, when I'm really not. It's more about how's it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. That is a lot to share. Does it feel okay to share? You feel okay?
Yeah, I felt
Does it feel okay to share? She is affirming and validating everything that he just put out there
Yes.
and
So I love it.
asking for his consent to be able to share that, checking in with him that after you said it, do you still feel good sharing this with people?
Yes, I love that. It's such a it's completely different from her online personality.
Oh, absolutely.
When you think about the video she did with Kristen and it was just like, wait a second, are they teenagers? Are they 12 years old right now?
Yes.
And I can be like that sometimes too. So I mean, honestly, I get it. You've heard me be like that too at times. But just the energy there, it was it was performative. But here it's like it's I feel like we shouldn't be watching. The cameras aren't even here and this is just them. And
Yeah.
she's taking a moment to check in on him. That was a big share. Are
Yeah.
you feeling okay? I love that.
And
I'm rooting for them so hard.
right? Well, and that's another thing that Jordan said throughout, this video. She was like, "Should we be watching?" like,
Right?
she said she felt
It's
like
so
she was in
intimate.
session with a couple doing couples therapy with a mixed faith
Mhm.
marriage. And it really makes you wonder, has Bethany started going to actual therapy?
Oh, I would be so happy for her if she was. I would be
Correct.
so excited.
She hasn't referenced her biblical counseling place in months. And if she is, Bethany, kudos to you. Like, this
Yeah.
is huge growth. And even if you did not change your faith one little bit, the fact that you are working through your own stuff and being able to connect with your husband on a truly intimate way. Your intimate wife
Yeah.
stuff is all about sex. This is true intimacy.
This is what
This
it's
is what
about.
it's all
Yeah.
about.
Earlier, we were talking about how with deconstruction, you're navigating a lot of loss. You're also enjoying a lot of, freedoms and peace. And I think Dave has that. He's feeling the loss, like he's experienced so much of that, but he's also experiencing the freedom of living out his truth and being honest about it. And so this is why I would be so excited if Bethany was going to a really great therapist, because right now she
Mhm.
has lost the ideal Christian perfect image husband in marriage.
Yeah.
And she's lost this control over the narrative. And so for her to have the experience of the benefits, the
Yeah.
joys of it, that would just be really exciting to watch. I think a lot of people say, don't get your hopes up. This isn't gonna last. But I'm like, I'm too old. I will get as many hopes up as I want.
Exactly. Don't take away my hope, damn it.
Exactly.
Felt like a big deal. So
it's a huge
just
deal.
wanna
Yeah.
acknowledge
More
that.
more stroking each
It's a big
other,
deal to
holding each
acknowledge it.
other.
And I mean, I would say it's not something that I would have like. I don't think when we got married I would have thought you were going in this direction for sure. But I think maybe like a year or so into our marriage, just your interests and books and what you like to study and stuff, it was like, okay, I think that it was, I could start to see that coming in. But I mean, we've had conversations about this sort of stuff. I've not been like totally in the dark
Yeah.
for a while now, I would say. So I think that that's definitely been, I wouldn't say you've been like totally dishonest recently, maybe just when we got married.
Maybe at the very beginning.
Got the girl. Surprise.
Well, I didn't. It
Oopsies.
wasn't like the next day. I was like, "Surprise! I'm an atheist. You just did it with an atheist."
I mean, yeah, people have a lot of questions about that.
That was the best line.
Correct.
What I think, what you think, how that works in our relationship. I think that we are uniquely gifted to love each other and work through a relationship like this. I think that even though it's hard for me, I have so much love for you, and it is emotional.
More hugging.
I think she's tearing up.
She is. She cries in part of this.
A lot of people have wondered and have asked, like, in the questions and stuff, how that is. And I am emotional, so we're just going to roll with it. Or else we'll never finish.
He's looking at her so sweetly, too.
Yes. Oh, that's also something I wanted to bring up. Whenever she does the videos with like Kristen and Kristen is talking, she's playing with her hair, she's on her phone, like she is completely
Yeah, looking at her
disconnected and
nails.
disinterested. Yeah. During this whole thing with Dave, the only time she is looking at something other than him is when she's trying to find like a specific quote or something that was in the comments. She is tuned into him and he is
Yes.
tuned into her. And the way that they spend, 80% of, at least 80% of this video just looking into each other's eyes, that body language speaks volumes.
You can really tell that they feel safe with each other. They feel supported by each other. And it's like they have this new spark. Like, that's my person. It's really sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with something as big as this. Like, he just admitted to the world, I'm not a Christian anymore.
Yeah.
There were clues, there were hints, there were other videos. We all had our speculations, but this is him coming out and saying, I can't say that I'm a Christian anymore. It didn't work for me. I tried as hard as I could. It didn't make sense anymore. That's huge.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
for them to be so, like you said, tuned into each other, it says a lot about them as people.
Like, when I think back to, I think this is something that, like, I really believe, like, when I think back to when we got married, I still look back and it's like, I have so much confidence that we're supposed to be together. And I have so much confidence that we are, like, super uniquely gifted to, like, really love each other. And I think we have I think that and people have told us, like, that we sought counsel from and stuff, just have been so encouraging and supportive of how we've been able to, like, press toward each other and love each other and have these conversations and not just, like, run away from each other in fear or, like, separate, but we've been able to, like, grow. And even though it's hard, this big difference of ours now, like, I think we love each other more now than we did, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, when we got married, obviously. Yeah. And, like, my heart is filled with so much love for you, and I want to be the woman with you. Like, I don't want to be anywhere else, like, I don't want a different man. Like, I want to be with you in this journey, even though it is hard. I want to be with you. But it is hard. It's hard to think, like, I mean, we are going to church together right now. And what, you are leading our family in, like, a morning devotional. You're just more careful with the words. Like, you say, like, this is what the Bible says, this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah, I can tell Davey, because I'm thrilled if Davey's, learning about the Bible and all that. It's like, it's great, Yeah, but I'll say things like, the Bible teaches that God loves us or something like that, rather than like, oh, God loves us.
I mean, it's really sweet. I think that's the thing when you hear about, like, oh, where, like, one couple deconstructs and the other doesn't. At least even having talked to friends and stuff, there can be a lot of, like, I don't know, like, even just that sort of stuff, like talking about the Bible or talking about Jesus or church can become, like, super high tension. But I've appreciated just, like, your maturity in that way of not being like, well, I'm not doing that, or don't teach the kids about that. You've been just, like, very, at least now, like, seeing the value in the community of that. And just the value of at least our kids being there for now. And I think that, like, Davey has such a genuine interest in, like, God and in the Bible, and I just really appreciate how you are willing to, like, I don't know, feed that interest or whatever. I don't know how you want to say it.
He brings it up every so often. It's fun, It's great to hear him learning stuff. And
when I think about it, I guess it's more those fears of, like, you know, what exactly does the future look like for us and for this? Because at this point, you see yourself more deconstructing, and I see myself not. Like in the sense of like, I see myself like, I, I, I just, I don't know. I like being a Christian. I like that trust in the Lord and stuff.
And that's so valid. If it is good for her, if she gets good things and value, and it, you know, adds to her life in a positive way, that's phenomenal. Keep going with that. Like, that's the
Yeah.
whole point of deconstruction, is to get to a place to where you feel most authentic. With my
Mm-hmm.
situation, you know, I went from deeply fundamentalist Christian to like anti-theist, not just atheist, but
Yeah.
like anti-theist for a couple of years. And then really struggling with like, no, I really do deep down believe that there is a higher power. I don't know what that looks like. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what my relationship to that looks like. But I do believe in my core, separate from Christianity, that there is a deity, or
Yeah.
deities or whatever. So then when I ended up in Judaism, you know, there is a deity, but the relationship to that deity is so different. Especially when you look at like, I'm Reform versus say
Mm-hmm.
Orthodox or Hasidic, you still have that connection, and that connection to a deity is important to me, and it
Yeah.
brings good things into my life, and it brings value to me. It adds to me in a positive way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like any other relationship that I have in my life. You know, I on my own am beautiful and wonderful. So relationships that I make, are you going to add to that beauty, or are you going to take
Right.
away from that beauty? And that's a
Yeah.
very important distinction to make with dating and with family and with friends and everything. And that's something that, you know, every parent teaches. You know, you don't want to be around bad influences that bring bad things into your life. It's just that the definitions of good and bad change. Like, it's
Yeah.
so valid to maintain a faith, and if you can hold space for your friend or your spouse or partner or whatever to have a different faith, and to still
Yeah.
see each other in a positive light and to respect one another, that takes incredible strength, and that is such a virtue to maintain.
Yeah, and I like hearing that from her. I would actually love to hear more from her about the positive side of Christianity. What is it that you love about being a Christian? What blessings, what benefits, what lessons have you learned? And she even said in this video, she said, I know that this is going to be a lot different because I'm not in a space where I'm teaching.
Yes.
And so I I feel like if she could merge those worlds where it's not about I'm telling you what you need to do, but it's more of this is why I'm excited to be a Christian. I think there are more positive ways to do Christianity. Yeah, we would like to hear more from her about the change in the belief of in modesty and in purity culture, and can you see how some of those beliefs have bled into transphobia
Mm-hmm.
and gender roles? And is there a version of you that can enjoy the Christian life and the walk with God, but then also be accepting of people who have a completely different story and completely different identity than you?
Exactly.
Like that would be a really exciting journey to watch her go through.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of another post that her mom Heidi has made. She said that with her and her husband, we were committed to our roles as husband and wife. We each learned to stay in our circle of responsibility and not try to change the other. In the beginning, we clarified and agreed with one another what our roles would be in the marriage. This really helped us to stay in our lane and not trip the other one up. We each had to look for ways we could serve the other Marriage isn't a competition, it's complementary. Learning to forgive quickly and ask for forgiveness often brought such peace. It isn't easy to say I'm sorry, but it was always the most healing and unifying.
Mm.
Asking for forgiveness is humbling, but that is exactly the place we are closest to God and each other. Pride is always a divider, humility always a unifier. And Heidi, like, is so close to the
Ah,
point, but
yeah.
veers hard to the right.
Yeah.
Because yes, it's not a competition. You are to complement each other's lives,
Right.
but that doesn't mean complementarian gender roles. And I'm sorry is important, but that's the forgive and forget that, you know, my family expected. And that's just not how it goes. She's got to get a jab in there that, you know, it's pride that is dividing Dave and Bethany from everyone
Mhm.
else, and they need to humble themselves and say they're sorry.
Which is so crazy because even the critics are going, this is a really good approach.
Yeah,
They're getting way more flack from the Christians and from people like Heidi.
yep.
I don't like that. That's really sad.
I hate it for them, but also it's the most predictable response that they were ever going to
Yeah.
get. You
Yes.
know, the response
Yeah.
from the haters and the critics and the spectators, you never know what you're going to get. But when it comes to fundamentalist family and you setting lines and saying, no, I don't actually think what my parents have been teaching is correct, is accurate, is helpful, is healthy, they get super defensive, which reminds me of Paul during their 24 hours
Yeah.
video. If Morgan said anything that was even slightly off of what he wanted her to say, he was on her case.
Hmm.
He was immediately insecure
Like
and
you wouldn't feel that way,
defensive.
right? Yeah.
Right. It was really gross. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And these two are looking at differences where they could get angry with each other. They could be fighting
Hmm.
constantly. But no, they're working it out. And that doesn't mean saying I'm sorry. I mean, he did say he was sorry for not being more
Right.
honest when they were dating.
At the
But
beginning, yeah.
with everything else, you know, he's not apologizing for leaving Christianity.
No, and he doesn't need to.
No, he was apologizing for being disingenuous. And
Exactly. Yeah.
it,
Yes, maybe it'll be a competition of who can love the other person the best and thereby making the best apologetic, the best argument for their view.
It's really sweet though, because I do have friends who like are in my position of like their husband's starting to deconstruct or whatever, and just like I just feel like you've been and continue to strive to just like love me so well and be so kind and sensitive and patient, and I am hoping to do the same toward you.
Getting up in the morning and being like, oh, I might not be a Christian. I find, so far, I find a heightened level of like, well, then everything that happens is up to, it's like my responsibility. Like if I don't like something, it's like, it's on me. It's not, I can't blame God for anything, I can't like spiritualize things like, oh, maybe God wants this hard thing to be happening to me in order to teach me something and stuff. It's like, if you don't believe in that and you're not, then it's just like, oh, I feel crappy because I feel crappy and whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not. Maybe I need to eat something, maybe whatever. And maybe I need to confront myself about an issue that I have and I'm not living with my integrity or something. And I still very much hold to that. The integrity stuff hasn't gone away. I would say this is a step in the direction of more integrity, more honesty, even more strength in a lot of ways, I would say. And I've been like, well, we can get into some of the comments and stuff in the video, but there was a couple comments in particular that really landed with me, and that I've been taking as fuel to be able to grow and to do a lot better.
I love how he is identifying the spiritual bypassing that happens and how
Yeah.
he's taking responsibility, he's taking ownership, he's taking accountability, and to say that, this is how I feel because this is how I feel. And it's not God working in me. It's not
Yeah.
demonic attack, it's not
Exactly.
spiritual warfare. It's just, hey, I'm
It
having a
is
hard
what it
time.
is.
I respect the hell out of that because I know that's something that
Yeah.
I talk to people a lot about how when you leave that little format and everything is up to you now. You know, all of your decisions are you, and you really have to own it.
It's something that is fearful when you look at it, like coming from the perspective of a Christian, looking at that and going, oh, wow, that feels really unsafe. It feels dangerous because you're used to this. I can thank God when everything is good. And then I can think that God is trying me and testing me and sending me a trial. And then this starts this whole other battle that you don't even have to be having. You might just be hungry. Like you might just need to go get a snack and like have a nap or whatever it is. It simplifies the way that you navigate through life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're not having to say, is this God? And I was watching Bethany when he was saying that, because I feel like that would have been one of the hardest things to hear from her perspective of this thing that you're talking about and telling everybody on the internet to do isn't my jam. And watching her, listening to him, and seeing her expression just change to like, yeah, this is my man. Like, he's going to say what he's going to say. It wasn't this stuck up, oh my gosh, you're going against everything I stand for. It was just very supportive.
Yeah. And it wasn't fearful either.
Yes, exactly.
You can see with Paul and Morgan, whenever Morgan starts to talk about something and Paul gets real concerned about what she's going to say and if it is going to conflict with what he thinks. And it it is an entirely different situation between Dave and Bethany, and I am here for it. With Paul and Morgan, it is all about othering everyone else. And so the only conflict is between you and others. And I actually see this a lot in young people. And they're like, yeah, it's us against the world. And
yeah,
to a degree, that's correct, because, you know, you are acting as a unit and, you know, you have to decide how you are going to handle things versus the responses that you're going to get from the world around you, your family, your friends, etc. But it often gets to this toxic place to where you are the only safety. You are the only anchor.
Yes.
And everyone is not just different from us or outside of our relationship, but they are a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more of like our difference in our faith journey, our belief in Christ and the word and like all of that. Like, it's tough, you know, not going to pretend like I'm some superwoman, and it's hard. And it's like, it is a lot. I think I was telling you today, like we have so many things that we, like, even just when I think back to like, I don't know, dating or whatever, it's like just like the stuff we love to do together, the unique relationship we have. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like from the beginning when we started dating, I was like, I want to do YouTube with you because I just, this is going to sound so selfish, but it's like, I love our relationship. And I think we're like a super special couple. Like, I just think we have like a willingness to be real and open and like not putting on a show and just like, just really like a fun relationship. And I just think that not in like a teaching sense, but just like in a sharing our life sense, that's something that I just have really loved about us. And so it's like, yeah, would it be awesome if we both just like shared the same faith like super strongly and just were like, both felt so encouraged by that with each other? Of course, I think we'd both love that, you know, whatever that. Yeah,
being on the same page, that'd be.
If I were like, yes, deconstruction, babe. I don't know.
I mean, it might have crossed my mind. Like, hey.
And if
I'll just have to make deconstruction look absolutely attractive. Just like the
sexy.
So yeah, I mean,
you can put it in your sex course.
You know, exactly. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say.
Oh man, can you imagine what happened in a week?
Yeah,
What's gonna happen in a year?
I mean, it's like, I love our kids. I love you. I love the life we're building together. I have so much excitement for just the family that we've been given, potentially in the future, more, you know, it's like just like the adventures, like we've have so many dreams of like places we want to travel, things we want to do together, just like the kind of kids we want to raise, just all
like
of
going
that.
to Costa Rica.
So the reason why he
says,
wait,
this is Self on the Shelf, right?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, is it happening? Is it really happening?
I don't know, but yes, for those who are unaware, Zelf on the Shelf is putting together a trip for deconstructioners, ex-evangelicals, ex-Mormons to go to Costa Rica. And these two love Zelf on the Shelf. They'll talk about it more in a minute. And Zelf on the Shelf has been so wonderful. Their response video to the Paul and Morgan video was probably the most caring and loving and empathetic that I have seen. Like, they were
Yeah.
able to be more gentle than even I can be, and I feel like I'm a pretty empathetic person.
They were excited to, like, when they were doing the reviews and they were catching these statements that Dave was making, they're looking at each other and going, wait, is this really happening? Because that's how it feels to watch it unfold, right?
Right? And they've been vague posting, well, I should say Bethany has been vague posting. She did one where there was like big hearts over the people's faces, and she was like, we just had a FaceTime call with our new besties, and I swear to God, it was Sam and Tanner.
Oh my God. I bet it's gotta be.
Well, and Dave has said in the past that, you know, he really enjoys watching like Exmo content. And I think
Yeah.
that that is really interesting because I see that a lot with people who deconstruct. It's so much easier to watch somebody else's cult and watch
Right.
people leaving a different cult than yours. And so you start watching that and you're like, oh my God, it's an amazing journey. I'm so happy for them. And then after a
Yeah.
while, it starts to kind of click like, oh, wait.
Yes.
My community has XYZ and
Right.
I am reconsidering XYZ, and it's a nice transition.
Yes.
Similar to, again, when we were reading The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Adults, it was very careful in that book to not label anyone with any diagnoses. Didn't call the parents
Yeah.
narcissistic or
Yeah.
anything, just that they were maybe self-centered or did selfish things. They were emotionally immature. And then they also were very careful about introducing terms like abuse, because you got to ease people into it, because if you immediately come out the gates talking about narcissism and selfishness and abuse and survivor and victim, those words are really heavy. And so if you just like
Yeah.
bam start with that, people are going to turn off. Even the people that are, you know, questioning that way, they're still going to turn off from it because they're
Right.
not ready to assume those labels. They're not ready to
Exactly.
accept those labels.
Yes, and with this, them knowing the fact that these two are watching that video of Zelf on the Shelf and hearing all of that, you can't help but be encouraged and uplifted by it because there's
Absolutely.
so much support there. There's so much truth there. But to see them so flattered and like, I'm getting a crush on Dave.
Right.
So it's cute. So I would love so much for this collaboration to happen. If you remember in their last video with 24 hours, Dave, when they were sitting at the table and he was talking about the critics and the haters, I think Paul had made the point of, well, they're not sitting down with us and having the conversations with us. And Dave said, well, somebody has to be the one to take that first step.
Yes.
And so here he is saying, look, these are some of the friends that I've made that we were talking about. Watch the video. And then for Bethany to be watching the video, we didn't peg you to be the ones to cross that bridge.
Correct.
But now that you're doing it, it's so exciting.
This wasn't on anybody's 2024 bingo card.
Nope.
I think you have to look at your life and anyone at any time. I mean, there are people who have a lot more in common than the two of us and who are way more miserable, you know? It's like we don't have that in common right now, but the way that I don't know, it's just like your focus and where you're going and what you're doing. And that's what I choose to do.
Okay, I want to say Bethany, by far, the highlight of the highlights of 24 Hours with Bethany was Bethany.
No.
Paul and Morgan were great, of course, and but I just Bethany was, you were stunning.
And there's lots more cuddling, lots more loving on each other. Love
Big
this.
smiles.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Just the kindness that you showed, and the just your understanding heart, and your ability to handle all of the differences that we have, and still speak in such a, just a lovely way about me and about our relationship. It was really beautiful. I'm so grateful for Bethany and her. She's really blown me away with just her kindness and her open heart. And
I love you so much.
you're a hell of a woman.
Babe.
She likes it.
Oh my God.
No,
That's so cute.
This is the holding space for each other. This is the creating a safe space for them to be themselves, to do whatever questioning they need to do, and to just, grow together through that. There's a lot of people that talk about love languages, and personally, I think love languages suck. They were created by a Christian fundamentalist with this very old school way of looking at, like, oh, well, men are much more physical, they're much more visual, etc. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of ideology about men and women. Gottman, on the other hand, I love the Gottman method. He talks about there being like 7 principles of, these different areas where you might see growth or conflict in a relationship. And the number one key to whether that would indicate that a couple is going to get divorced is if they turn away from each other and they have contempt for one another. The good things that you see are when your partner makes a bid for attention, and you can respond to that in a number of ways. And if you turn towards them, if you accept that bid and you give them validation and affirmation for making that bid, that makes you that much stronger as a couple.
And you can see them doing that with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
They're so
Here's
cute.
the deal. It's like, this is my man, like, if you're gonna, I'm just not one of those wives where I'm gonna be like, I don't use language. Every time you use language, I'm gonna give you the cold shoulder to show you not. It's like, you're my man. I love you.
Too much fun for that.
I'm gonna, it's like, I'm just gonna accept you just like you do for me. I do things that you don't like, and you accept me, and just like, so it's like, you can either give the cold shoulder or laugh along and
Come on.
fall
Big
more in love.
hugs.
It's like,
Okay.
fall more in love.
That is accepting the bid. You could turn away, give the cold shoulder, etc., have that contempt for them, but no, they are turning towards each other, accepting those bids, affirming them, validating them, all the good stuff.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
Has Bethany Beal proven the haters wrong?
Ooh, I honestly think she has, because her
At least in a
persona,
few areas, right?
right? Well, like her girl defined persona is obviously not who she actually is. And we have always seen it as, oh, well, that's just how she is. And so clearly she must feel this way or that way about Dave, or about marriage, or about family, or about faith. And we are finding out now in these moments where she is so obviously genuine and so obviously authentic to who she is. And it is completely different. And
Yes.
again, while she has still done very problematic things, very harmful things, and I hope that she eventually walks those back, we can see that the underlying person that she is very different.
Yes, exactly.
I've loved all the comments, like people just like feeling like they saw a new side of us, gaining a new, of course,
a lot
like
of just nice, genuine.
all the nice, genuine comments, really love those. But I just think it's hilarious how almost every single person in the comments like picks someone they want to side with. That's just so funny to me. Like, I like this person, I like that, but I don't like that. It's just like everyone's got their person.
I know one of my favorite comments on me is, Dave is a sociopath.
Okay, that laugh was a little creepy, but
Right? Now, I
I'm
guarantee
glad they
you.
can laugh.
Yes, because I guarantee you, if Bethany said, "Oh, honey, that laugh was kind of creepy," he would not respond the way that
Nope.
Paul did when Morgan said
He
his
would
laugh was creepy.
probably just laugh a little bit more, and then that
Exactly.
would be
He'd be
it.
like, "Ha ha 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 ha,"
Yeah.
and they would again turn towards each other instead of away from each other, accepting the bids for attention.
Yep.
So when it comes to the comments, the places that I've looked at comments are the Instagram reels, like that Paul and Morgan post and that we've collabed on. There's like a lot of comments on those, like snippets from the video.
Yeah.
And then obviously like the main Paul and Morgan 24 Hours With, that has a lot of comments. And then they did a reaction video to their own video.
To their video.
And that was fun to watch. And they have the comments on there. And the only other video I've watched about this video, thanks to your recommendation, is the Zelf on the Shelf video with Salmon.
Yay!
Samantha
I
and
had-
Tanner. Shout out to Samantha and Tanner of Zelf on the Shelf.
Shout out.
They're two beautiful people.
Yes,
It's a
they
good
are.
video too.
I had never heard of them. I don't watch like anything on YouTube, like any videos about me, about Girl Define. Like people would be like, that's the main critic of Girl Define. And it's like, I have never heard of them because I literally do not spend any time on Reddit, any time on YouTube.
We're
Like,
not
I'm
saying Zelf on the
sorry.
Shelf is
Okay.
is the-
She has been very honest and genuine about a lot of things. That is a lie because we have absolutely watched in Fundy Snark where we will post something or have a bunch of posts about a particular thing that she has done, and then she will respond to it within like hours on
Yeah.
her stories
Yeah.
and whatnot. So like, I know that she looks at Reddit. I know that Paul and Morgan look at Reddit, and of course they
Right.
want to downplay it because they don't want to give us credit for anything. But yeah,
Right.
they are watching us.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I guarantee you, she is not watching like the 4 hour long Mickey Atkins or Rachel Oates
Yeah,
videos about
right.
them. That's way too
Yeah.
much. But like I think Zelf on the Shelf is
The
like an hour and a
general-
half. You know, that's a lot more
Yeah.
digestible for someone who doesn't necessarily want to listen to a critic.
Right. Yeah. And this could also be, I feel like she's the kind of person that once she does things for a few days, then it's like, this is how I am. And
Mhm.
so that might be her response to this particular situation where she's going to keep up with the comments on the official places where they're posted, like on the Instagram reels and the YouTube. So, I mean, I guess there's that potential that she's thinking, I'm going to listen to Dave on this and I'll interact in those spaces where I feel like it's safe.
Yeah.
Because I think some people do think like you watch reaction videos and stuff like that, or you're scrolling Reddit or something, and it's not that way.
how'd
Like,
you come across the Zelf on the Shelf video?
it was because
It was
I
only
was
like a few
preparing-
days ago you found
It was
them.
like a week or
A
two
week ago? Okay, yeah, it
was
wasn't that long ago.
So because we were going to meet with our pastor, and I was thinking, okay, what are the things that I want to bring up? And so I was kind of Googling like Girl Define videos. So I was listening to like Girl Define videos and then some of the reaction stuff. And I stumbled upon Zelf on the Shelf. It was like
so funny.
the top something. And it was the hooks. Cause it was like,
Was it one with you?
yeah, it was,
It was seeing your face.
it was like the Barbie review and the, our
She
conversation
called
stuff.
me
and
hot.
You were like, that's me.
like that's
me.
And then I started listening to it, and I kind of got hooked on Zelf on the Shelf.
Because you were
And-
like, these people worship the ground I walk on.
No.
Yes, they
well,
do.
It doesn't. I like them.
I mean, she's kind of right.
I do.
She
too. I
is.
get
I
it.
think they're super nice, and
We're stans.
I
Cute,
just I
though.
feel a lot of affirmation from them, and that's very sweet. But and I like these.
And
people.
we're going to Costa Rica.
So
Right.
he was like, oh, you know, like they seem cool. You'd probably like them, whatever. So this is just a side tangent. So then I was like, okay, I don't watch like any. That's like Paul and Morgan's reaction was the only thing I was planning on watching. I don't Google, I don't YouTube, I don't look at anything. But that specific one, I like went straight to the channel and I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I definitely appreciate their like kind, gracious way they went about like discussing it and stuff. They call themselves like ex-Mormons, or they are ex-Mormons, or anyway. So I think they're a good representation of like unpacking a video in a kind, gracious way. Is that video of theirs?
Okay, because you went to watch some of the other ones. Okay. In that vein, I don't think we talked about it in here, but hater levels.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Critic. Okay, just dream with me for a little bit. We can often talk past each other because when we talk about how to deal with like in our dinner table conversation in the 24 hours with the video, we talked about the haters or critics and people. And when one person's thinking about haters, they're thinking about the people trying to actively remove you from social media and get you banned and coming after you and giving you death threats and all kinds of terrible things. And then somebody else might be thinking, oh, somebody who has a different point of view, who is pointing out that they think your view is harmful and stuff like that. So critic levels, maybe hater is the premium package where it's like the platinum, we have a wonderful platinum package to offer you. and the platinum package is full on hater of that nature. And then level 1 is the bronze package, which is like or silver, which is I don't know, just like somebody who disagrees with views, thinks your views are harmful, something like that.
That would be self on the shelf. They would be level 1.
They would be level 1.
They definitely disagree. And
We actually have a difference of opinion. Well, that's they think that your views are
yes.
hateful. Right.
Yeah, so they would be level 1, which would be more of like a critic, not a hater. I wouldn't put them in the hater camp at all.
Right, you're not a hater.
Yeah,
I think it's pronounced friend.
I think he got confused
But
as to what she was saying.
Yeah, I agree. But I do love how he says, I think that's pronounced friend.
Yeah.
Well, because they were talking at the dinner conversation about how you need to make sure that you have friends who think differently from you and that, you're exposed to other things. And so labeling someone as a critic and not a friend kind of puts a distance there, and you're not able to, absorb what they say the way that you would a friend.
I think that this actually could potentially open up an even bigger conversation. So, I mean, even if you go into a Reddit group, you're going to have big disagreements from within the deconstructing group of people. And they're having disagreements within all different types of Christian people. And so if we're able to bridge more of these gaps, I think that would be, it would have just like a ripple effect in so many different areas of how do we have good conversations with people and try to get to the bottom of why they believe what they do and accept that that's their journey and that's their path and that, yeah, we can still be friends.
There is a component of, being open to reconciliation that a lot of reaction channels don't have. Like, for me and for my space here, it's more about pointing out the places where we can deconstruct, pointing out the harmful views, pointing out what I have found to be more healthy views, more healthy perspectives, but keeping it open to where, everybody's deconstruction is different. And so yours might not look like mine, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I hope that I come across in a lot of these as open to reconciliation. I know I have been really hard on Paul and Morgan. But again, that is just because they are so chock full of harmful ideas. And I mean, I've got a video called 7 Minutes of Paul and Morgan Being Problematic. And
yes,
on TikTok, it has like 11,000 views at this point. And
jeez, that's awesome.
I get comments constantly on it. And almost every single one is, what do you mean your body isn't your own?
Yeah. Like, are these people being for real? This isn't real, right? Yeah.
So
it's over on TikTok, because I know exactly which video you're talking about in that comment section. Is their minds are blown by these ignorant statements. Like,
exactly.
This has to be just people making fun of Christian couples. No,
right.
Morgan and Paul.
That is exactly what we were all taught. That is
Yeah.
exactly what we were counseled with when we were getting ready to get married. That is the feedback that we got after we were married. You know, that is
Yeah.
a super core ideology of evangelicalism. Like, it doesn't even have to be
Yeah.
fundamentalist. You know, just about any evangelical is going to have some variation on that theme when it comes to how you relate to your spouse.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think Jordan and McKay were talking about how in Mormonism, if your spouse goes to a different religion, you're supposed to divorce them because like you want to have a spouse that will help you get into the what's it called? Their version of heaven.
Yeah,
Um,
there's the terrestrial, the telestial, and the celestial kingdom. And
okay,
so
yeah.
you want to get to one of those higher levels of heaven. And in order to do so, you must have a solid ceiling with a person who, you know, has a temple recommend and all that. And there's dissent here and there. But generally, you know, historically speaking, if you wanted to get into the top tier, the celestial, you had to have be in a plural marriage.
Oh,
Yeah, the men had
okay,
to
that makes sense.
yeah, the men had to have at least 3 wives.
That makes Sister Wives is making more sense now
Right?
too.
That's why he had to have the
Yeah.
3. That's why he very quickly married 3 women.
She's like, yeah, you're not an unbiased.
Yeah, but like they would be in that level 1 of like being critic and thinking some views are like, oh, these are hateful, damaging to the world, while also plummeting the depths. They plummet the depths of the Reddits and sometimes repeat things that are completely false and untrue. And so it's like
Reddit adjacent.
yeah, which is just that part is unfortunate to me. It's like, oh, like a channel like that, I do think they have so much going for them, and it's a little unfortunate to me when it's like, okay, why are you repeating some of these major talking points that are so completely false without like for sure knowing? So it's like, I really appreciate when channels on that level who are critics, it's easier to listen and to really accept like that feedback when they don't like repeat the random talking points, which not in the most recent video, but in some
We
previous
both watched the most recent video today together.
Yeah, I mean, people always ask like, do you have any friends who are not just like you?
I'm sorry. What did he say?
People are always like, do you have any friends who aren't just like you? And here's the reality though, like we are super open to like having friends who think differently. For heck, I married you and you're
heck. You heard it here, folks.
It's like I married you and
Goodness
I still love
gracious.
you and we have a blast
And
together.
She's not an idiot. Like Bethany knew from the beginning that I was kind of not cookie cutter.
No, you weren't. That's what attracted me to you for sure.
I was
It's
like,
just
hey,
like,
babe, I can welcome you to the dark side. Come be
No.
with me, babe.
I didn't think you were going down a deconstruction route. But I mean, I really admired your integrity, which was
Yeah.
one of the things that I've talked over and over again is what I've loved most about you.
Yeah.
And it's your integrity that is taking you down
Which
this
is
path of
random.
deconstruction.
It's
So
kind
it's
of an
like,
irony.
yeah, but I still,
Irony.
I choose you today, babe.
I did get some positive comments on the 24 hours with video for me personally, and Bethany got a lot of positive comments and just our relationship, and you have just a range. But I think Bethany's just a shining
The video?
the shining star video. One of the things that came up in the comments was there's a comment that had to do with my behavior and just making the observation that I seem to be taking little subtle digs at Bethany and kind of at her expense and sort of like siding with the outsiders and this reminding this person of this narcissistic behavior that she saw in her father or something like that.
It was like a whole
Her
big
father,
comment.
just a big comment. It was a couple comments, I guess. And just hearing that, just like, wow, I've never seen someone who exhibited the traits of my father quite like Dave, that these narcissistic kind of traits. He didn't say I was a narcissist, but, and I read that and thought about it and I was like, well, I definitely have been like that in the sense of taking little digs or making fun of Bethany in subtle ways at her expense, snarking and stuff. And I felt like when I looked inside myself, I see traits like that. These narcissistic traits of like, needing someone to be less than in order for me to feel better about myself. And those are just traits that I really don't like, and I really don't want those there. And over, it was this last or a week ago, we were with our friends, and I made some comment. I was just making some comments. I was just being flippant. I was being flippant about deconstruction. I was just, being flippant with Bethany and it just, sort of little things at her expense, little put downs and things at her expense. And man, that's just the worst. And so this comment calls me out, and I see a lot of those traits at times. It's been something that I've been working on. However, I could still see some more recent. And so I'm taking that very seriously, and I've used that comment, I think for good, as almost like rocket fuel to really kind of motivate me. When I read it, it doesn't feel very good, but it really helps me to confront myself and say, okay, this, to the degree that I exhibit this behavior, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. Stop. So I wrote a bunch of commitments for myself of how I speak about Bethany, and I think there's a way to have opinions and at the same time to not come with any type of energy that's snarking on her from me. And actually it even extends to other things. Like as I confront myself on this, I notice there are other benefits as well. Like I don't have to put other people down as much. It's not just Bethany. It's like other guys, for example. And I just remember this quote. I heard this great quote. A strong man doesn't need a weak man in order to feel strong.
I will give a shout out to the Zelf on the Shelf. They have a lot of quotable lines that were funny that we've been quoting.
Oh, I feel this is their best. For the videos I've seen, they are at their funniest.
Yeah.
So I do want to say that his ability to take a critical comment and to pick it apart and internalize the components that are true, like that is the heart of deconstruction. That is where you look at a belief or a way that you act or a way that you think, and you're like, okay, how much of this criticism is true? How much of this criticism is somebody projecting on me? But how much of this is real? And where do I need to improve? Like, what are my bad habits? And that absolutely speaks to his ability to be a man of integrity, man of authenticity.
And if Paul could take something from this is how you make friends. This is why people like Dave, because he took a comment, he evaluated it, he looked to see if there was truth in it, and was willing to say that to everyone watching. Hey, you know what? That is something I had to reevaluate and look at, and I've grown from it. Exactly. That's all. This is all we're looking for. Like, this is the growth that is so fun to see. And if Paul and Morgan went through something like this, you know how excited everyone would be?
Oh, 100%.
Like, there's always room for growth.
Yep.
Like, even if it's small, even if it's little, we're going to celebrate that, because it's showing us this healthy side that we've already experienced. We already know how it feels and how rewarding it is. I just want you to keep feeling more and more of that.
It's starting to think like t-shirts and stuff.
Like, whoa, dangerous thoughts there, my guy.
Not even the nature of the Godhead, babe.
I read the Torah, bro.
And I'm just like, yes, hold me, Janet.
There are so many people who are like, please address Paul attacking Dave afterwards. Paul loves to act like the best Christian and as if he knows all, but there is no such thing as the best Christian, and Dave's journey seems to be going well, all this stuff. So hopefully this video clears a lot of that up, because you are owning.
Yeah, it's going to disappoint some people.
He's making some uncomfortable faces.
I think Paul is just expressing his view. You know, you can have an opinion. I think I made it pretty clear I'm not a really good representative of Christianity at this point. So not. Nor am I trying to be.
And I don't know what. I haven't seen anything that Paul said that's like putting you down at all.
I'm sorry, but that is
Maybe she hasn't been reading all those comments.
correct. She clearly hasn't been reading Paul's comments. She hasn't been watching his stories. Yeah, because he has, he was saying that, people go to therapy and they go off the rails, and he's said lots of things that weren't necessarily like pointed, including Dave's name, but they were absolutely subtweeting Dave.
Right.
So
and he has been coming after therapy a lot lately.
Oh yeah.
And so the intensity of it, what else are we to think? Because they just spent 24 hours with them where he talks about therapy and is having life changes and stuff. That's what Paul did with Isaiah. As soon as this 24-hour thing was done, then now all of my content is going to be based on what we disagreed with.
Correct.
And what your haters were saying to us or whatever,
Yeah. You did this supposedly to create Christian unity, and all you can focus on is your differences. Like, come on now. Be for fucking real.
Exactly.
Do you feel that Paul and Morgan approached the interview in as non-judgmental a way as you did?
What does that even mean? I mean, we all make judgments. We all have opinions. I mean, I told Bethany, it's not like she left and I was like, judgmental. I'm glad she's gone.
I didn't feel like they were judgmental at all, but like Morgan made it super clear. Like, I can't just have that sort of disagreement.
Why is that a problem?
Like,
so she doesn't want to have that type of marriage.
She doesn't want Paul deconstructing. Like, well I don't really want him deconstructing.
Yeah.
Now, I will say though, the tone that Morgan took with her when Bethany was in the car with her and talking about how they have differences and they work through that. And
very interesting.
Morgan's like, no. No.
Hey, it's your all's marriage. You gotta figure it out.
She sounded like she was 13,
Yes.
Judgy little mean girl in junior high.
When Paul and Morgan made a reaction video the first time, I remember Morgan saying, I wasn't being judgmental. I was just saying that wouldn't work for me. Like, that would be the end of us. And Paul was like, whoa, hold on. Like, we could probably work through it, right? That's a little brash. She's like, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That is a judgmental way to come across. So
yeah,
Dave and Bethany are just trying to be gracious and not stir the pot.
Exactly. Because there's no way you look at Paul and Morgan's content and don't see them as being extra judgmental. And it's not just like I disagree with you because of this, that, and the other. It's absolutely assigning a moral good and a moral evil, and everything is black and white. So if you're not the moral good, then you therefore are the moral evil. And the world is full of gray, my friends.
Yeah. We could feel the pressure that Paul was putting on them to say things publicly that maybe they weren't ready to say. And this might have also come from their private conversations where they know more about what's really going on. So then they ask them about those things.
Yeah.
Especially in Dave's position, he's in a position where he's like, I guess I just need to be honest. I'm going to just be me. And because these are very pointed questions. And I mean, like they said, that's part of the reason why they went to couples therapy, to dive deeper into these things. But I just think that there's so much bigger at play here with Bethany and Dave than anything that Paul and Morgan have to do with it at this point.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
This isn't like my top, like, oh, let me look at all the dreams of what I want for Dave deconstruction. Like, yes, it's like, no, of course. That's for me, not what I would want either. But like, I truly believe for me that God has us together. And I think we're super uniquely gifted to love each other well in this way.
Well,
I love that phrase.
Yeah, I'm plenty judgmental. For better or worse.
How is it hosting Paul and Morgan? How are they different and the same in real life as they are online? So it seems like so many people on the internet have a problem with Paul specifically. Like, they're awesome, and like
he cracks me up. He's like, hilarious. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, and
he's so funny.
Like, you were inspired by the way he treats Morgan. Like, he's just like a great husband, like super genuine. But I relate to him in the way that when I film for Girl Defined, it's kind of like you have this mode for better or for worse, and it's like you just kind of get into this like camera mode. And I think, Paul, you have that too. You get camera mode.
I'm sorry. I'm calling bullshit on all of that. I have a feeling that Paul and Morgan kind of go into a different mode when they're on these 24 hours visits, because they are staying in these people's homes. These people are taking them out to dinner and such, and so they need to look good. They continue to talk to married couples, and so they need to look like a good, healthy married couple. And I think that there is a lot that happens behind the scenes based on, things that they post on their socials, Morgan's little vlogs that she does here and there that don't make Paul look good, the way that they are nasty to each other on screen. Like, I can see if, you've got an overdramatic sense when you're on camera, but just being downright mean for years when people keep calling you out about it and you're not correcting, like, I don't see that as being genuine. I don't see that as being kind. I don't see that as being a good partner or spouse.
Yeah. Well, and if that's your camera mode, you need to rethink what your camera mode is doing for you.
Correct. And pulling it back to the emotionally immature parents, those roles, like this on-screen persona that they're talking about, she was given a role within her family. Girl Defined is an extension of her family. She does it with her sisters, and so she has to maintain that role that she was assigned. And that's not necessarily something that she has much or any control over. And so when she's in that element, she has to act a certain way. I know early in my deconstruction, whenever I got around family, my persona was very different around family versus how I acted in the rest of the world. So I think there's absolutely something to be said about these strict and really firmly reinforced roles that fundamentalist families get into.
Yeah. And it's very dysregulating to take yourself out of that role. It can take a lot.
Well, because like Dave was saying, there's all that anxiety about what is their response going to be. And when you look at least what Heidi is doing, it's a very strong negative response. And so you are justified in feeling dysregulated and concerned about that happening.
That's another loss that Bethany's having to process right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when you realize, okay, these people are valuing something that isn't proven to even be real over me as their daughter. That's a hard pill to swallow. Are your convictions, your faith, so controlling of you that you can't love unconditionally?
Well, I mean, there's Bible verses for that. Jesus did not come to bring peace. He came to bring division between the niece and her aunt, the father and his son, the mother and her daughter. And so you're supposed to abandon your family if they do not, go along with this faith. It is not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the sad reality.
So here's the comment that I think encapsulates like what the problem is, what people are having a problem with, like with Paul and Morgan, and then specifically you. And if you'd known that Paul and Morgan would have gone on to call Dave not a real Christian, and Paul would have gone on to say that people go off the rails after getting therapy and make a lot of insinuations about Dave and his character, would you still have agreed to do the video? Like 1000%.
Yeah.
And like, we don't care. Like,
well, I mean, what happened? Like, I'm basically agreeing with Paul in the sense that I'm agreeing with him that I'm not a real Christian. Not like.
Who cares if you choose to go to therapy and somebody else is like, oh, you go off the rails when you go to, like, who cares?
I think she had a lot more to say and then they just cut it.
I agree. I think a lot more was said and was edited out.
Yep.
Go follow them on YouTube. familial.com, whatever, Paul and
They got a
Morgan.
hell of a channel.
They're doing such great work. These videos that they're releasing are awesome. I feel super honored that they came and stayed with us and did their video. I don't know what the future of it is, but we posted this video.
Who knows? You're a beautiful human being.
So this was their response in the fundeception that is happening right now. This is Paul and Morgan's response to that video from Dave and Bethany that we just watched.
There were a number of moments in our video where it was clear Dave is in an unusual spot in his life in regards to faith. He's holding certain views that are not aligned with Bethany, are not in line with traditional Christianity. My mind was like, are we going to watch this video from Bethany and Dave, and they're going to address our video and some stuff they shared, and then Dave is going to get on and be like, you know what, guys, I actually was maybe in a feisty mood. And
I don't think half of what I said in that video.
I'm actually stronger in my Christian faith than it may have come across. I thought maybe that would be the case.
Yeah.
And that was not the case.
No, it was not.
Ultimately, Dave does not mix words. He doesn't leave it.
Dave doesn't mix words, Paul. Come on now. Oh, this is a Becky eating crackers, but like, he's so dumb. He's just painfully ignorant. What's funny is Dave was saying that, Paul was saying these things about how Dave isn't a Christian because he had more information to go off of. And then he comes on here and he's like, man, it totally took me by surprise. You had those other conversations and you knew more. Like, why is this so shocking to you? Yeah. But again, he's dumb.
Is
he kind of deconstructing? Is he in a place where some Christians get to where they're just kind of at a rock bottom moment where they're struggling or where they have deep doubts or deep questions, and he's just kind of
rock bottom
and made it clear in their video.
He's not a Christian right now.
He's
maybe never will be again. My mind never went to like, oh, he's actually gone even further on to say like, actually, no, I'm stepping out. I'm comfortable enough now. I'm not a Christian. And I was just like, jaw on the floor.
There were elements of beauty, like true beauty, of a wife who is saying, you know what, this is the reality of our life. And perhaps she's even feeling a little bit of a weight off of her shoulders. Like, let's just be real. She admittedly talked about how challenging it is. She teared up. But seeing the way that she responded to Dave, there were definitely elements that were beautiful. So if you go to the comment section of the video, you see a huge outpouring of not just like love. They love each other. They're going to work it out. Bethany said multiple times, just when we were with her and even in the video, I believe, he's a man of character. And so integrity, thank you, character. Mm-hmm. And so that blesses her, and her life is so blessed to have him as a husband, a father to their kids. He gets up and he still does devotions with them, even though he admittedly said, he's not saying, I believe this, but he's saying, this is what the Bible says. What I was saying was the comment section, it's not just those sentiments, but it's, in my opinion, not as a good thing. I don't love the comment section of the video.
Okay. It's not your video comment section.
Right.
It's Jen's comment section.
Yeah.
All the other people's comment section. They're the ones who are getting 5 or 50,000 views. Like, your video, like, don't come into our space and then say, well, that was a little harsh. You are harsh on video, and this is our response to it.
Correct.
He's just so sensitive. A sensitive little, it's frustrating.
That's why he can't help himself but comment on Fundy Fridays videos.
Yeah, exactly. To the point where she is posting on the Instagram page, like, this is how I feel when Paul comments on my videos. And it's like getting outside, smoking a cigarette, stressed as fuck. Like,
it's just like, oh God, here we go again.
We're not out there attacking you on your platform. We're not interacting with you. You're coming over here and doing this. It's a lack of self-awareness. It's so evident right here.
Correct. And I mean, this is the night and day between Paul and Dave. Dave looks at the comments and sees someone comparing him to a narcissistic family member, and he goes, oh, you know what? What parts of those are true? You know what? That actually is accurate. Let me change this about myself. Paul sees even just the tiniest bit of criticism, and he is posting like 7 stories. He's made 3 reels, and he's just like, how could people say this about me? That's just so mean. Like, why are the haters after me? And there's absolutely no introspection. There is no self-awareness.
Right. And at some point in the conversation with these comments that he's interacting with, he doesn't ever say, this gave me a new perspective. That's something to think about. Like, not even a hint of reflection on other opinions. It's trying to make sure that his tracks are covered.
Yeah.
Go to your own comments.
Right? Go talk to your
You said your
patrons.
stuff. Exactly.
I think it's funny, they had a Discord for a while that was part of their patron benefits, and they shut it down because it was too much work.
Too much work.
And I think that they were probably also struggling with people questioning them, and they didn't like having to deal with that. So now everything has to be, you know, public on their socials or YouTube or whatever.
You're going to have to really use your strongest imagination skills.
Okay.
But could you imagine a world where Bethany begins to deconstruct, and Dave and Bethany and Paul and Morgan become friends and both deconstruct, and then create a deconstruction channel?
I'm looking at statistics. There's a good chance that Bethany may not leave the faith completely like Dave has, but she will likely deconstruct to a much more progressive version of Christianity. As far as being friends with Paul and Morgan, though, they're not going to be, you know, your super close friends or anything. I don't see Paul and Morgan being able to do the introspection necessary for deconstruction.
I don't see that either. The biggest, I guess, hope that I have is that Morgan gets real therapy. And even if they were to say, hey, we're still Christians, but we got a lot of things wrong, like Bethany has started doing. I mean, that's also a possibility. I really don't have as much hope for them, just because I see just walls in front of their faces. Nothing's going to get through to them, and I don't think very many people are motivated to get through to them.
Yeah.
Perhaps have very intensely deconstructed themselves, like had major deconstructions to where they would not consider themselves Christians anymore, are hopping into the comment section, and not all of them, don't hear what I'm not saying, but a large amount of them are hopping in and praising the video and praising Dave and praising the situation. They're allowed to do that, sure, absolutely. If I'm being real, I'm not praising that situation. That's gut-wrenching for me as a Christian. I sent Dave and Bethany a voice memo. Said, guys, I appreciated aspects of the video. I appreciate you being just raw and honest with your life. But it was gut-wrenching for me to see someone as a believer that's after the Lord and is living in light of eternity, that, you know, one day we're all going to die and face judgment. I'm believing what the Bible says. To see someone who's now kind of seemingly through a number of reasons and different things abandon the faith is not something that I'm going to hop in the comment section and be happy about.
You know, I'm sure that Bethany and Dave are both aware that a lot of the people cheering them on in this journey that they're going through are people who are hoping that not only Dave deconstructs, but Bethany does too, and then the whole family.
Amen. Hell
I'm
yeah.
aware that a lot of these people aren't necessarily cheering
place.
them on for
Join us.
the right reasons.
We have cookies.
And I think that really, like, all we can do, any of us, is just be praying for the both of them and be praying that the Lord is in this entire journey and that the victory is his in the end. So, yeah.
Someone wrote and said, this was sad to watch. so many are deconstructing because they replace the word of God with podcasts and man's wisdom. Dave, please repent and turn back to God before it's too late.
Satan's podcast.
There has been an explosion in the last few years of people talking about deconstruction and like really centering on that word. My podcast recommendations list is ridiculously long, and I feel like it's a good thing because there's so many different ways to come at it. There's different personalities and all. And I think it's really important for everyone to find something that speaks to them. There's so much discussion about it and there's so much variance, but we all agree on this idea that we don't have to be chained to what we were raised with or what we converted to. We are able to use our God-given, mental faculties to work through what is true for us and what is not. Some people are going to take it farther than others, and that's okay. But Paul and Morgan are this hardline stance that, even if Bethany was to stay a Christian, but to become a more progressive Christian, they would still say that she had left the faith and she wasn't a real Christian anymore. So they have no grace or understanding of the nuance and the gray areas. They say they do, but in practice, they absolutely do not.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm thinking of when I'm watching them respond, because he said that he sent a voice memo in response. So here's Bethany and Dave, and they've made a decision for whatever reason, whether it's genuine or whether they felt like they had to. They made a decision not to say anything bad about Corgan. So they just decided this is what we're going to do. They're our friends. We're going to talk them up. We're going to encourage our followers to watch the video that they posted. We're making this decision to kind of take the high road. And then their response that you receive is, I'm disheartened. This was really sad. I'm not going to glorify this. I'm not going to praise this. Ouch. Yeah. Like, if that was coming from a friend, it seems disingenuous.
It is. And I mean, I would really question whether I was able to remain friends with a person like that. If you cannot respect who I choose to be, there really isn't a friendship to be had. We could have a very loose acquaintanceship. You're not really going to be my friend if you can't respect me. And, trying to proselytize is not respecting. When I was disowned and I reconciled with my family, I told them, look, I have one rule. Only one. Do not proselytize to me. And what did they do? Every single year? At least a couple times?
No.
Like if I posted something about Judaism, Jewish thought, a Jewish holiday, I would get either like comments on my social media, private messages, text messages. Yeah. Here's some Bible verses that say that you're wrong.
Right, yeah.
I towards the end of the relationship, I had sent them a very, very vulnerable email talking about my religious trauma and the way that prevents me from being able to connect to evangelicalism, Christianity, how Judaism has allowed me to reconnect with God and to have that faith again, because it's done in such a way that does not trigger my trauma. And they took like 2 months to respond, and what the response was that I'm wrong. I need to come back to the faith that I was raised with, and they will never stop praying and trying for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I have told you, I don't know how many ways that, these things that you're doing, proselytizing to me, it is hurtful for me. It drives me away from you. It does not help our relationship, and it certainly does not make me want to go back to Christianity. You are shooting yourselves in the foot, and I can't keep doing this. And then when I go no contact, I thought it was both sad but funny. I blocked them online. I blocked their numbers on my phone. But when you block somebody on your phone, it sends them immediately to voicemail, so they can still leave you voicemails.
Okay.
And your text messages go to a little hidden folder, so you can go back in
Oh.
and see what they sent you if you look hard enough for the hidden folder. Well, I think it was like 6 months or so after I went no contact, I got a voicemail from my mom.
Oh, wow.
And it immediately put me back into like terror, trauma. I was not okay.
Yeah.
And so I handed my phone over to my friend and I just told her my mom left me a voicemail, and she goes, "Okay, step outside." And so I stepped outside. She listened to like a minute of the like 4 or 5 minute long voicemail, and she waves me to come inside and hung up the phone, and she goes, "Yeah, your mom's just trying to guilt you into coming back, and she doesn't understand why you're doing this. It came out of nowhere." And I was just like, I was so mad.
You
I was
weren't
like,
listening ever.
exactly, like
Yeah.
I have told you so many times why this is gonna happen, and then when it happens and you're a shocked Pikachu, like, you clearly are not listening to me. I absolutely made the right decision. So then after I got that voicemail and was like, let me look at text messages and see if they tried to text me before they called me. They only texted me once on my birthday.
Is it like just happy birthday?
Yeah. I guess I'm happy that they weren't trying to blow up my phone and send me angry messages and stuff, but at the same time, like, that's so sad. Like, they obviously didn't miss me.
Like, that was the bare minimum.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
absolute bare minimum is to wish me happy birthday. And that was hard because it both solidified that, yes, I made the right decision for myself, but you grieve that because that's not a relationship that you want to go without. Like we said at the beginning of this, nobody wants to go no contact with their family. Nobody wants to cut these people out of their lives. It is hard. You grieve that. And so the same thing with friends. If they cannot respect you, what else is there to do but to cut contact, or to at least go low contact at a certain point?
Well, and it also shows that they don't think we were listening. I'm going to send you this article. I'm going to send you this Bible verse, as if we didn't know absolutely all of it already.
Exactly.
Like, those are the things you've been telling me my entire life. I know that you believe these things.
Right.
And so when you get a tiny glimpse that my version is different, it somehow in your brain you think, oh, she just needs more of this information, and that'll change her, that'll bring her back.
Exactly. Because, a lot of us talk about how our deconstruction started when we seriously read the Bible.
Study. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's what Dave did. He's read it. He studied it. Like, tried to make it work.
He has read the Bible way more in just the last couple of years than Paul and Morgan have combined in their entire life.
Yeah.
And that's always the number one thing that anybody who is anti-deconstruction comes back with. Oh, well, you must not have understood. You must not have read this verse.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And that's probably what's going to keep them in this place, too. They're not trying to question beliefs or find the root word or the original, word in the Greek or Hebrew to dissect a Bible verse. They're not going to take time to do that. And so they're going to miss how many potholes or plot holes there are.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
He's on a journey, and God can use someone who is searching and he says, seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. So if Dave is seeking with all his heart, I'm hoping that he comes back to what I believe so confidently to be the truth.
I feel like a lot of people learn from the truth, the Bible, and start listening to podcasts and reading philosophical books and like taking on all these voices and all of these ideas and allowing the word of God to be pushed to the back. How could you keep walking with God if you are no longer listening to his voice or seeking him on a regular basis?
Proverbs says, more blessed are the wounds from a friend than the kisses or the flattery of the enemy. A lot of these people praising it, it's kind of flattery. Whereas I would hope that it actually shows more love on my part being able, and I told him this to his face the second day we were there, just that, man, I'm concerned for you. That's me loving him.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no hate like Christian love.
Yep.
He's propping himself up like, ooh, I'm so good, I'm so loving because I told him he's wrong. That is exactly the mentality that my parents have. They don't want to tickle my ears and tell me what I want to hear, because obviously that's what I'm doing because I disagree with them. I'm just listening to people who want to tickle my ears. They want to flatter me. I do have people in my life who affirm me and who validate me, and that's not entirely a bad thing. Like, yes, if you have just yes men around you who blow smoke up your ass, like, that's not a good thing. But having people who genuinely support you, even if they disagree with you, and like disagree with you respectfully, and don't, condescend to you and act like they're better than you, and someday you'll come around and you'll see my view. Like, that's so gross. Yes, I would love to see Paul and Morgan deeply study the Bible, deeply study and question the beliefs, but I'm not determining the outcome for them. I just want to see them do the work.
Right. Exactly. That makes all the difference.
As far as is Bethany in the situation she's in, she's just a champ. 1 Peter 3, wives, in the same way submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives when they see the purity and reverence of your lives.
Amen.
So there is beauty, there is hope. We're all going to have to refine our faith. And I think one thing Dave has really taken upon himself is looking at his past. He feels like there were very heavy legalistic elements to his upbringing, to the point where he would call it a cult.
That surprised me. So in their private conversations, he labeled the fundamentalist evangelical stuff that he and Bethany came from as a cult, and that's why they moved to a more progressive Lutheran church.
Yeah, and I can see that the only reason Paul's bringing it up is just to say even what he had as a kid wasn't correct.
No.
And he would tell you that.
I think what he is bringing that up for is to display how other Dave is, because the conservative evangelical space that he came from agrees with Paul. And he is labeling something similar to Paul as a cult. And Paul has to prove that, well, see, he took it too far. It's not really that. Maybe he needs to refine his faith, but he's going too far.
So Paul wasn't considering it a cult.
That's just Dave. That is definitely not Paul. Here, let me let him finish his sentence and I'll kind of explain.
Our faith becomes our own as we mature and become adults. We're going to have things that we disentangle and refine and study and grow in. Deconstruction often leads to just a very open-ended, almost no faith at all. Bible is not authoritative anymore. So I'm looking at the Bible still as authoritative, and I'm disentangling some of the stuff maybe that was a little off as I grew up.
So yeah, he says that he's disentangling, because he uses Ginger's word because that's better. He's disentangling and studying things and deciding what his true mature adult faith is. And people like Dave, who are deconstructing and going more deeply into that, are wrong because they're taking it too far. They're not anchoring themselves on the presupposition that the Bible is correct and authoritative. It's that circular reasoning that, the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true.
More towards the beginning, that this is what he had expected or hoped from Dave, was that he would say, this isn't really what I was thinking. I was just having a bad day. And then also saying, like, this is the outcome that we really want and what we're hoping for and what we're praying for. And what we applaud Bethany for is just tell everybody you're a piece of shit and you need God's coverage for your sin.
Yep.
Like, that's what they want at the end of the day. They want him to say, I, as a human, am sinful and I need repentance so that I can go to heaven.
Yeah.
Paul talks a lot about judgment and the final days, and at the, like, when we're, when we die, whether we were a Christian or not. Like, that is his motivation, which is part of the reason he's not progressive.
Yeah.
Is like the focus on the hell and damnation and stuff. I'm sure Dave watched this video too.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would assume. But like hearing that as somebody that you told some really intimate details of your personal walk with God to, and then his response is like, all I can hope for is that you say you were wrong.
Yeah.
Eva says, why was the whiskey part taken out of the video? Oh, well. Yeah, we didn't actually film that just because it was like we wrapped up filming.
Since they exposed me in their video, it's out there. I was thinking just for my brothers and sisters in Christ who maybe are sensitive to that and maybe would go all the way to say, I feel like it's a sin. I just didn't feel like opening that can of worms.
What? Wait, what?
So
Says Paul, who wouldn't stop bringing it up.
Right? And so he's going to hide the things that are authentic about himself that might cause problems with his followers. He's not going to be honest. Gotta love that.
Gus says, Paul, something that surprised me about your guys' video was your admission to responding to messages and comments as Morgan. Olgar.
This. So apparently, whenever the Paul and Morgan, whether their YouTube account, their Instagram account, the combined account, often he will pretend to be Morgan.
What?
When it's the joint account, it may be him pretending to be her. And listen to his explanation why.
Are you wondering now if Paul's ever messaged back pretending to be me?
There's a chance.
If it's my Instagram, it's me always, guys. If it's Paul and Morgan, it's possible that it was Paul.
Okay, but it's not like I'm getting on there lying and being like, hey girl,
girly,
hey girl defined, this is Morgan here. It's more just like I am speaking to them in their native tongue. I'm just getting exposed all over the place.
What?
So yeah, he would go to girl defined videos, and because it was girl defined, he felt like it would be weird if a guy was commenting on it, so he would pretend to be a girl so it wouldn't be weird.
Ew.
Right?
Ew. No.
Yes. Yes.
I don't like that. But what is their native tongue?
Yeah, exactly. Like he can hello fellow kids himself in hello fellow women.
Oh no.
It's so slimy and gross.
Paul's pretending to be a woman.
Yes.
Okay, anyway.
So now watch them lose their heads about snarkers.
I wish Paul and Morgan get more subs. Everyone else is leeching off them.
Leeches.
Ain't that the truth, though? Have you guys seen some of, like, the response videos to our 24 hours videos? I have not watched any of them, not a single one. But the views on those bad boys are insane. And I'm just kind of like, you know what I find the most annoying? These people who are watching the response videos, they're still watching our video, but they're watching it through a website, apparently, where YouTube doesn't count it as a view. And I just think that's pathetic. Be the bigger person that you claim to be and actually watch our video on YouTube.
Everyone that's watching this video, go give it a thumbs up to show the little weasels that are watching on literally some other type of app. Show them.
It's just pathetic. Because Paul, if
Okay.
Paul's gonna watch a response video, you better believe he's watching it straight from YouTube.
Oh yeah, because I'm not a freak.
We can
So we're leeches, we're freaks.
But you also have to factor in, just like somebody commented on our last video, I don't want to have to watch this alone.
Yes.
We're coming with you. That's the whole thing, is we're watching like Fundy Fridays and we're coming along with someone who's breaking it down for us so it's not so unbearable to watch.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And
So remember that, Morgan.
it's so wild that they are just, I mean, they go on, like I see the rest of the video is all them complaining about snarkers using YouTube. They are so pressed about it, and they're like, we can have millions of followers and millions of views and millions of likes if you guys
No,
would
you
just
wouldn't.
use our use YouTube. And I'm like,
No, you wouldn't. There would be nothing enjoyable about the content if nobody was commentating on it.
Correct. Basically, every major reaction channel has, in less time, gotten more views or exponentially more views and likes than Paul and Morgan's original thing. And that means that, yes, we are curious what you're doing, but we're not just going to support you. And they're like, well, be the bigger person. You're not. So
yeah, and look who's talking. And we don't want to support them because of their harmful views. So no, we don't want them to blow up on YouTube for saying things that we have found to be harmful.
Exactly. We want to support the creators that are pointing out the issues and the better ways forward. That's what we're interested in, is the commentary, talking about you, and just deal with that. You run a gossip channel, so why are you so surprised that people want to quote unquote gossip about you? It's ridiculous. And I just, it again really highlights the difference between Paul and Morgan and Dave and Bethany.
Well, and those numbers show you what people are actually interested in. There's a lot of people who are going through deconstruction. There's a lot of people who are sick and tired of this messaging that you just have to do everything the right way and you'll be happy like us. So there is going to be a huge following on people who are walking alongside other people who have deconstructed.
Yeah.
So they really are a little bit delulu in thinking they would have 1 million subscribers.
Absolutely. If anything, they would have 1 million downvotes and negative comments.
Good point. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they don't want to get ratioed. Yeah, so that is the big news. Dave is deconstructing. He is no longer a Christian. Bethany is still solidly a Christian, but walking through this period where they are going to love each other despite some pretty fundamental differences, and they are going to work out what is a healthy way forward. And it really sounds like, from the way that they talk to each other and act to each other in that video, that they are more than likely already in couples counseling. So they're doing the right things to make a mixed faith marriage work. And she is being non-judgmental about the whole thing. She is not bad-mouthing her husband for doing something and believing something differently than her. She is saying, no, I know that you are a man of integrity. I know that you are the man that I love and that I want to be with. And I loved her saying that I feel that we are uniquely qualified or uniquely able to love each other. That is such a beautiful statement. And comparing them with Paul and Morgan is just night and fucking day. I am here for this. I really hope Dave and Bethany continue to put out content together with each other. I think it is the most real and genuine that we get from Bethany. I am super excited to see what they do, even if she remains a very solid Christian. Again, our hope is not that everybody leaves Christianity. Our hope is that everybody seriously considers what is correct for them and holds space for other people to think differently without attaching moral goods and evils and being, condescending and superior. And I will take accountability that there are moments where I get somewhat judgmental about certain beliefs and feel superior about moving on from certain beliefs, but I really want to express that a lot of that is, and I think Dave said this in another video, that it was projecting. These people that comment on Reddit, they're projecting what they have gone through and what has happened to them and the people that have been around them. And I really appreciate his ability to hold space for people to have trauma responses for some of the things that he thinks aren't that bad. I do want to, hold a little bit of space for them, definitely bestow some grace, because I would hope they would bestow grace on us as well.
And it'll be interesting to see what comes next from Girl Defined.
Yes.
And if it looks any different. I know they have a book that's supposed to be released soon.
Yes.
I don't think it's a good one. I
No.
think it would be really great if she pulled that out and was like, let's just hold on to this for a little bit, because I really don't think that Dave agrees with the topics that are in it. But it'll be fun to see what happens.
We'll see. That wraps us up for now. Sorry to keep delaying the strong-willed child, but shit keeps happening. So, of course, as always, make sure that you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more from us. Give us a comment. Let us know what you think. You can find my socials in the show notes. And I hope to see you back next week. Have a great time.
See you soon.